So we're going to just go around and make sure everybody knows who you are and who you represent district-wide, or if you're a classroom teacher, what you're teaching, or your professional position. So,
Dave Anavate, Granite School District. I'm actually over athletics. However, we do not have a social studies specialist right now, and as a former social studies teacher, they asked me to come over and take copious notes. So I'm here to enjoy talking about social studies again.
That's great. Thanks, Dave.
Corey Little from Nebo District.
Ben Prowl with Weaver District.
Scott Lambert, Canyon District.
Renee Colbert, Alpine. Amber Reynolds, Murray District.
Wendy Assett, Utah Division of State History Program.
Peter Van Orden, formerly of the Catholic school system, now with UCSS, and a little bit of Utah Historical Society. I come to the district.
Great, awesome. Banbury Cross, man. If you don't get Banbury, you need to. So.
And Sue Jordan.
Chris Merrett, also with Utah Division of State History and Archaeologist. Sean Lambert, also archaeologist for Utah, also with the Division of State History.
So can we just stop for a moment and think about the possibility of the concentration of archaeologists in this state in one little corner of this room? That if we were to do a density map, that would be like off the charts. So we are delighted to have both of you here today.
I'm Corey Barrow from Iron County School District.
Thanks for making the trek.
Neil Peacock, Emory School District, and that movie was actually about my third grade.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wow. You get an extra donut.
I'm over it.
All right.
Peggy McCandless, University of Utah. I work in the College of Education and teach elementary social studies.
Great. I'm so glad to have you. So welcome. We have a lot of things to look at and talk about, obviously, in the little bit of time that we have. So we're going to get started, but I'm going to run through this agenda really quick and just kind of spur your mind if there are other things that you need to put on them. So we're going to look at the Transcontinental Railroad professional learning opportunities, and we've got some great insights here from our archaeologist friends. I want you to think about whether you, because with Elaine in Alpine and with Pam in Jordan right now, we've got professional learning developed, or scheduled, and we're working with Neil to get some out in Emory as well, regarding the lessons that we've developed and in celebration of the sesquicentennial of the Golden Spike. And the Golden Spikes are actually here. We could have, I guess if we'd met up at the Utah Museum of Fine Arts, we could have seen them. You can certainly go up there. Has anybody been up there yet to see the 3 of the 4 Golden Spikes? There's one lost spike that's still rattling around in somebody's drawer, or melted long ago into cooler gold. I don't know. Okay, we're going to talk about Utah History Day judging opportunities. I just threw that on Wendy because I figured we could always throw out a call for judges. And if you've never judged, you should, because it warms your heart. Then we're going to spend some time, and I have the elementary core standards. I know that it's kind of frightening to think about the fact that I helped revise the elementary core standards when I first came here, and I've been here past my shelf life, so we're looking at revising the elementary core standards probably, and I want to kind of be proactive about that. So a couple things that I'd like us to do today is, one is take some time looking at what we require of students in the elementary grades and seeing where some kind of low-hanging fruit in terms of changes. The other thing that I'd like us to think about is there are new standards in science that are in the midst of being approved and should hopefully get approved. And I think that creating some form of crosswalk to say, oh, in 3rd grade students study X. What are the social studies concepts that are either evident in 3rd grade or could be useful to be taught in 3rd grade, so that there's more of a possibility for integration? It seems like that would be a useful tool, either to have a crosswalk document or and or to also inform our work in whatever revision we're doing. Does that make sense? So we're going to spend some time looking at that, and some of us will have to pull up the elementary science centers. I didn't print those out because they're draft, but they're available online, and we can get some printed copies if we need to. We're going to get an update from Better Days 2020, which, if you're not aware of what that is, we will fill you in. Sean, we don't have to do this in order. I mean, we can certainly do this now with Chris.
Perfect, I go after Chris.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
I had to reschedule a meeting a few days ago.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But Sean is doing some really awesome stuff as well, and so we want to make sure that you're aware of those opportunities for students. We have a giant map of Utah that is about as big as the middle of this room. I mean, like here, right? Elaine, were you able to be there? You saw it?
Yeah.
She saw it in person. Okay?
I did. And actually, I had taken new teachers on visits and just happened to be at that school. And I'm like, oh yeah, the map is here. And when I went, the doctor or whatever from Colorado was actually going through a lesson with students. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So we'll talk more about that, and we're gonna talk about the logistics of, because I'm ordering more. I'm just using some geography money and ordering 7 more big giant maps. And then we have to think about how they'll be housed in districts and how you would check them out and what kind of professional learning we need to have so they don't just sit taking up space. So we'll talk about that. There's a geography advisory council that meets quarterly with National Geographic, and we're meeting actually this afternoon in a webinar. So I want to kind of give you guys updates about what's going on with that. And I'd love for people who are in that group to just talk about that as well. We are going to talk about civics. I got all the civics reports from districts here printed out, and I can shame those districts that didn't do a report, which will be fun. And we're going to talk about planning a June conference like we had last year, a repeat, but to also kind of think about highlighting some of what people are saying in here, and possibly beginning a process of providing awards to districts and to teachers who are out there leading the charge in terms of civics and character education, and using the reports as a possible beginning point for doing some investigating and seeing if they're really doing what they're saying, and giving them some cash, perhaps, even. And for example, there are schools that do We the People in middle school, and that's a really important program, and people need to be recognized for that work, because it's an extra amount of work. But I'll tell you what, there's nothing like hearing 8th graders talking about the Equal Protection Clause and the 14th Amendment and the way that now that they've learned about these constitutional issues, they see it every day in the paper. And I tell them, oh yeah, it's kind of like when you learn a word and the next day you start hearing that word. So anybody ever had that experience where you're like, sesquipedalian, I didn't know, and now here I see it all the time, right? And that sesquipedalian actually means a lover of large words. So, and when you're 54 and you actually remember that, you're really happy. So that's an important thing to know. So these kids were talking about how they're starting to see constitutional issues in the paper all the time about due process and equal protection, and I was like, yes. So that was cool. There's a professional learning opportunity on Muslims in America that I sent information out, where a national organization has money to do professional learning, and they want to find a partner. So that would be somebody that we could use. How many people here know Clive Romney and his work? They're going to come in and give an update on some of the stuff they're doing around the Transcontinental Railroad and the arts connections that they're creating with songbooks and storybooks, and it's a real opportunity to think about the role of folklore and folk life and local art and local storytelling in social studies. Then I've created a Holocaust genocide page just to kind of bring everybody back down to after that high from Clive, and I want to talk with you about that. The Stegner Symposium is something we'll talk about as well. This is an opportunity to look at the University of Utah Law School has the Stegner, like division on public lands and public policy. Good morning. Does a pretty amazing symposium, and I said, gosh, I think teachers might be interested, and they said, well, we'll waive the registration fee for teachers who want to attend, and so I want to kind of spread the word with you about that opportunity to try to get some teachers there. Because, for example, they have the former Secretary of the Interior, Sally Jewell, is going to be there to talk about some of the issues around public lands, and this is a perfect opportunity for Utah Studies teachers in particular, or geography teachers to see policy in real time. And then I've got a couple articles to share with you as well to wrap up, and then we'll see if there's any other time. I don't think there will be. So, all right. So, Desi, do you just want to say hi? Introduce yourself so people don't know you. All right, welcome. All right, so Chris, let's have you go. I'm gonna try to go. Does anybody remember a blog or an email that I sent out about a story map about the Transcontinental Railroad? Bueller, anyone?
Trick question. I think we get about one email a day from you now.
Hey, no. I know. The blog is going to go away, just so you know. The blog tool up at the University of Utah is going away. I'm going to have to figure some other way of storing stuff. So because I don't have the because I don't have the blog right now, I have to go here. All right, so let's see. These are some of the things on the blog, so you should be able to see these on the screen. And if you, so I'm going to just see if Stray Map is in here. Let's just see if we can find it. No, nothing for Stray Map. Okay, so good. So that was a trick question. So I don't remember whether I put it in the blog or not. But let's think about the easiest way, Chris, if you want to just talk about it, and then I'll pull it up and try to find it. And you can talk about anything else you want to talk about regarding your work, regarding the Transcontinental Railroad and the kinds of opportunities this summer, the workshop, all that stuff. Okay?
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for letting us come in here and crash the party. You get more than 2 archaeologists in a room, something usually goes bad. So let's keep it at the 2. I'm Chris Merrett. I received my PhD up at the University of Montana in 2010, studying the archaeology and history of the Chinese in Montana. And so when I moved down to Utah, my wife's from here, I started working for the state about 6 years ago, and I found relevancy with this little thing called the 150th anniversary. My education and my background allowed me to engage on the transcontinental story because of my interest in Chinese history and archaeology. And so I'm excited to share some stuff that we've been working on, and also a little bit more broadly about what archaeology can do for social sciences. And Sean works with me in the antiquities section of state history, and we work with Wendy, who's awesome. So we try to partner, and we're trying to do more and more engagement outside the walls of Stoic archaeology used to be. So we're trying to find new and novel ways to partner. So before we get into Transcon, in the fall we did actually take a number of teachers down to a rock art preserve on the west side of Utah Lake and take a tour of prehistoric rock art dating 2,000 to 3,000 years old to present, both on a private preserve, but then on BLM and civil land to show the impacts of recreational shooting has occurred on those rock art panels. So there's lots of opportunities for us to partner, and not just purely on the railroad, but with museum studies, in-course curriculum. Sean is actually a certified public archaeologist teacher, so he can teach curriculum from public archaeology. And so we try to find ways every day to partner. So that's the big pitch.
That's great. And Chris, I'm passing around an article that I saw where I think, Sean, you may have been referencing this article about the concern about vandalism and public, like rock art and archaeological treasures. So the reason why I'm so glad that Chris is here and Sean is here and Peggy is here as well in terms of institutions of higher ed is because one of the things that I really want to focus on, and I want you to think about opportunities, what you know, and connections that you can make, is that, like, for example, just the bottom here, it says this: BYU Assistant Archaeology Professor Michael Searcy, okay? I don't know him, right? I didn't even know he existed. I'm lucky I know that Chris and Sean exist. Has anybody ever had any contact other than this? You guys can't answer this question. Of this assistant archaeology professor at BYU. Has anybody ever heard of him? Okay. Now I know that institutions of higher ed, their initial charge is not to work with K-12, but by golly, we have got to work with them, and we've got to work with them more often. And so, I don't know if you know Megan Osborne. She's an amazing teacher who works with the Utah Council for the Social Studies, and she just had a baby, and she emailed me and she said, hey, I'd love to do some projects while I'm home. So here's what she's doing. I'm having her scan the websites of every institution of higher ed in history and then geography and then moving into archaeology and so on, and making a spreadsheet of this professor is doing research on this topic, and here's their info, and let's figure out how to get a hold of them. And the reason this came up was because how many of you read Dr. Mackenzie Skiles' work, a geography professor up at the University of Utah? She's doing work on the Great Salt Lake and on the dust patterns on the Great Salt Lake. So what do we know about the dust? The dust blows off the Great Salt Lake. Where does the dust go? Where do you think it goes? It goes here, right? And it lands where? In the mountains. Fine, that's fine. Dusty mountains, whatever. But when dust lands in the mountains in the winter, that dust is actually less reflective than the snow. So snow melts faster. It evaporates and it runs off faster, which means it doesn't just soak into the mountains and provide us with water. So there's less water that goes to the Great Salt Lake. If there's less water that goes to the Great Salt Lake, what do we have more of now at the Great Salt Lake? We have more dust, which then blows onto the mountains. And so she sees a potential death spiral for the Great Salt Lake and for the snowpack. That's problematic, folks. But Dr. Skiles' work would be awesome as an entry point in a Utah Studies class to think about what are some things we could do to mitigate the impact of that dust, right? In terms of, well, if we can get more water to the Great Salt Lake, we can mitigate some of that problem. So if we don't irrigate as much, if we change our lifestyle regarding Kentucky bluegrass on all of our lawns, that might be one way. So I emailed Dr. Skiles to try to get her here to talk about her work so we could then brainstorm how could you take her work and then create lessons around it that kids could use in the classroom so they could see real geographers at work. And she just couldn't be here today. But that's the kind of thing I want to have happen, which is why this is a long bird walk away from what Chris is talking about. But the point is, there are professionals out there doing amazing work who we need to connect with. And we need kids to see what the job opportunities are and what the real work is in institutions of higher ed. Okay? So, and now back after the commercial message.
No, that's awesome. And towards that, actually, yesterday I met with the director and co-director of the Great Salt Lake Institute at Westminster, which is an organization within Westminster that is trying to find ways to get more people interested in the Great Salt Lake. And so the story map that Robert's going to show you, they're actually meeting with us yesterday to see how they could use that same platform to take this high-level science and actually make it more digestible to the general public and also kids. They also just completed a kids book highlighting the biology and ecology of the Great Salt Lake, from the brine shrimp to cycles of salinity, and trying to engage kids to understand the impact of the Great Salt Lake on our ecosystem.
What's the name of it?
I think it's the Great Salt Lake Mystery. And so it's just talking about rising and lowering lake levels. And one of the shocking things that I learned from these guys is the Bear River, which is what feeds about 60% of the fresh water into the Great Salt Lake, is it's not reaching within 4 miles of the lake right now. So the Bear River Wildlife Migratory Refuge, there's no water flowing into it anymore. And so that's because of upstream diversion heading all the way back up into the Uintas. So the impacts we're having on the Great Salt Lake are fairly dramatic. And so as an archaeologist, we don't get to sit and purely look at just human impacts. We need to think about climate very broadly and look at all data sources, which I've always made the pitch that archaeology is probably one of the most attractive broad science applications for K through 12, because we do dendrochronology, we do pollen analysis, we do ecology, we do mathematics, we do everything that possibly can fall into a STEAM sort of perspective. So I'd be happy to talk to you, Robert, about making more contacts if you're interested in the Great Salt Lake.
Yeah, that'd be great. And again, there's a perfect example of a science social studies shared issue that could either go at elementary grades or, because there are things that fourth graders can think of creatively that seventh graders can't, so, and they're certainly capable of. So that could be some real cool opportunities there. Part of it is kind of reminding folks that schools are not only interested, but there's really kind of a moral imperative to involve more of these conversations in the classroom regarding some of these public policy issues. So this is do you want to talk about this now?
Yeah. So I will do a segue.
Please.
I'm going to do that from the Great Salt Lake to the Transcontinental Railroad.
Awesome.
So, and just to tap on that is the brine shrimp, sea monkeys, are something that almost every kid nowadays know. And the Great Salt Lake provides about 70% of the world's supply of sea monkeys to the world, largely for, exotic fish food nowadays more than recreational. So it's an easy thing to get kids interested in the ecology of the brine shrimp. And it's also $7 to $10 billion business in Utah a decade. So there's a lot of money going through the Great Salt Lake. And right now we're dealing with, because of the receding lake levels, salinity is increasing to the point in the north arm of the Great Salt Lake that brine shrimp can't live in that high saline. And so right now the north arm, which, this is the segue, was cut off from the rest of the Great Salt Lake in 1964 when they built the Lucerne Cutoff as a rock causeway. The Transcontinental Railroad was bypassed going around the northern part of the Great Salt Lake in 1904, and when they built the original trestle across the Great Salt Lake, it was all open wood, so water could flow back and forth. 1954 to 56, they came in and put it rock and made basically a dam separating the two halves of the lake. So now the north arm is about 2 times more saline than the south arm, and that means it's about 4.5 times more saline than the ocean. And so even our little friends, the brine shrimp, can't exist in that high saline environment. So the range of even our little friends, the brine shrimp, are starting to dwindle. And so that connects to the Transcontinental Railroad story. So, segue.
Nice.
High five around the table.
Awesome.
So the Utah Division of State History, we partnered with the Spike 150 Commission, which was a governor-appointed commission to highlight the 150th anniversary of the Transcontinental's completion on May 10th, 1869, up there in Box Elder County on Promontory Summit, not Point. A lot of people say Point. So what we tried to do is several different products. So I worked with Wendy and Robert on helping with a lesson plan using my experience with Chinese, overseas Chinese material culture. So I did the lesson plan on the Chinese experience on the railroad, or one of the lesson plans. The other product that our shop ran was this story map. And so it's using sort of a publicly accessible format to take multimedia presentation of a narrative. And so story maps are actually based on GIS, Geographic Information Systems, which is just a really fancy mapping software. But it's trying to find a new way to convey old stories, and to do it in a way that's graphically interesting and also walk you through a narrative. And so we spent a lot of time. I will take no credit for the actual creation of this thing. I just provided content and photos and some storyboarding. I had a staff member that worked for me, Christina, that created this. And we're actually getting lots of emails from around the country about how cool this is.
It's pretty cool. And how many people here have either learned about story mapping or have taken, because they do community mapping classes during the summer and teach people about story maps. Pat Lambrose for years from Salt Lake District did story mapping. Anybody? Yeah. I mean, this is something that students could actually create as well, but it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I'm just scrolling through it. You're just to kind of give you visuals. Okay.
Yeah, and as an archaeologist, what really got me into doing this versus standard history is I like archaeology because it's place-based. I can go out, see the place, touch the things, make it much more tangible. And so that influenced how we wanted to generate this map, because a lot of people know that great story on May 10th of a bunch of rich white old people celebrating the completion of this railroad, but not so much of the landscapes that it passed through, the changes that it met to our American history and the impacts on Native Americans, the labor forces of different ethnic groups and nationalities. So we wanted to make this thing a little bit more place-based, a little bit more of like the landscape did shape the story and the story shaped this landscape. So we tried to highlight, just how quick this moved through it. We tried to highlight a lot of photographs. So the photos right there that Robert has on the screen, those are existing pieces of Chinese material culture that are still at the town of Terrace. And so Terrace, which is on the western end of the Great Salt Lake, was the biggest, or the third biggest town in Box Elder County in 1870. By 1900, it had dwindled down to nothing, but it also was the third biggest Chinatown in Utah in 1870. The Chinese were heavily used in the maintenance of the railroad after its completion for the next 30 years until the Exclusion Act forced the railroads to hire other labor, such as the Japanese, Greek, Italians. And so as we move through the map, it just kind of tells the race to promontory, the kind of before and after photos today, because many of these landscape features are still on the ground. The 10-mile day and feat that's never been met again by railroad construction, even with modern technology. 4,000 Chinese workers, 400 to 500 Irish and other groups, Mormon contractors, all working together to build a track, 1 mile of track an hour. Started about 7 o'clock in the morning and largely finished by 3:30 in the afternoon. 22,000 railroad ties, 16 tons of railroad spikes. I mean, just the amount of machinery and organization necessary to construct this is just nuts, especially in a landscape where you were by yourself. You didn't have resupplies coming very easy. So this map we visioned, and at the very end is kind of another thing we wanted to highlight, is to make this story map a bit of a spine that we can attach other things to. So someone could visit this, learn a little bit, and then go explore the material that's on UEN, go explore other products that are on other platforms. So to make it kind of a gateway to other resources and to tell the story in a kind of new way, not a stoic old book format.
One of the cool things is that the 10 miles of track laid in one day sign here is a replica, I think, at the site, but at the Daughters of the Utah Pioneers is the actual sign. It's pretty cool. And for many of the Chinese immigrants, Max Chang, who's doing a lot of work around this sesquicentennial, he says for many of those Chinese immigrants, this is actually revered far more than a golden spike, because it represents the fact that it's primarily Chinese laborers who were helping lay those 10 miles of track. In 1969, at the 100th anniversary, the Secretary of Transportation spoke about the work of laying that track. And he said, among other things, who else but Americans could do this kind of work? Who else but Americans could lay 10 miles of track? Who else but Americans could blast through this rock? And so it's been 50 years since then, waiting for the 150th anniversary for the Chinese workers to be able to say, well, actually, it was Chinese workers who laid that 10-mile track, and we didn't get commemorated at the 100th anniversary, and it's been really an amazing kind of evolution to get more of the story told. It doesn't diminish the story to say, actually, there's a larger story here, okay?
Robert, did you say that sign?
This sign is Daughters Utah Pioneers sign, right? Yep. And I think, are they going to move it to the Capitol for the sesquicentennial? Did you hear that?
That's the discussion, yeah.
Yeah.
And the original signage was actually one at the starting and one at the end. So it was two original
cool.
signs.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
Little fact for Jeopardy.
Yes, awesome. Well, it's good to know. Just like there wasn't just one golden spike, was there? Right. So I'm just going to scroll through this really fast because I do want to just also focus really quickly on the impacts to tribes, because this is a pretty neat piece that you put in here. This is a great map showing all the native tribal cultures that were sliced through with the development of the Transcontinental Railroad.
And it's important to point out that, you know, some of the ways that we talk about Native people in K through 12 is we kind of lump them as a group. And there was no single experience between the tribes and the railroad. Every tribe interacted with this in a different way. The Plains tribes obviously were much more worried about, I mean, we're already dealing with the Laramie Treaty of 1868, which shrunk the reservation by 2/3. There was a lot more animosity towards the railroad coming because they knew what that would bring, versus the Goshute or the Northwest Band of Shoshone, who didn't see this as necessarily the same threat, but found ways to supply the workers or contribute labor, versus the Western Shoshone, who did have some issues with the railroad coming through. So every tribe interacted with this story differently, but they all suffered from the impacts of that railroad, both the intended and unintended consequences of growing a population in the American West that is not native. So it's always an important thing to nuance that a little bit.
So Chris, do you want to talk about other and there's some like photographs I've never seen before, like this photograph of Salt Lake City I'd never in my life seen, because that's the city, the council hall, which was torn down and moved up to it's the Office of Tourism now up at the Capitol. Can you talk about other ways to connect with you and what's happening this summer with your seminar that you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm working with the University of Utah, actually, to do a teacher's workshop, a one-week workshop, kind of a crash course on the transcontinental story, but really fixating on the Chinese contribution to it and all those events that led up to having up to 13 to 14,000 Chinese workers in 1865 to 67. Like, where did they come from? Why was there such a big labor pool? You know, understanding what was occurring in China at this time, what they did on the railroad, and then what occurred during the 1880s and after the recession of the 1870s. So it's going to be a week-long teacher's workshop. We're still working the July dates out, but it will be in July. I think it's going to have about 25 enrollment, 25 to 30, and we will have a day where we go out to the Golden Spike and go to the ground and actually see the material culture on the ground.
Can you offer credit?
I believe so.
State credit, not university credit.
I believe they are doing state credit.
Will you get information?
Yeah. And so, yeah, we're negotiating a
credit,
timeline.
I'm just for the recording, I just want to make sure that people heard that. That's fine. And there will probably be university credit, I would imagine, that would be pretty inexpensive and would be recommended for people as well. To just, again, then it's on your transcript forever.
Will there be a cost for participants?
I believe so, yes. I'm just the hired talent, so
yeah.
I will get you the details on the details.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk. Is it through the Gateway to Learning Educator Series, or is it, do you remember, is it through Tanner Humanities Center, or is it through?
It's through Tanner.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means it's usually $80 is the charge. It's not much.
Yeah, and we're pretty excited because with that comes like a little stipend to get course materials.
Great.
And so I'm going to be providing a lot of articles for free, but there's also, because of all this energy towards the 150ers, there's actually going to be 3 new archaeology and history books that come out about the transcontinental in April and May. So we're hoping that we will have like those high-end new scholarly literature ready for the teachers that participate. So I might have a chapter in one, so maybe it's a shameless plug. I don't know.
Yeah, that's great.
But it should be a good way to get people really into it, because the story is really, really varied and important. Because one of the greatest highlights of my career was in April, we took a group of Chinese descendants out to the railroad grade and showed them the Chinatown in Terrace. And it's a different experience when you go to the Golden Spike Visitor Center versus going to the places that they lived.
Right.
The dugouts that they lived in during these harsh Utah winters for 30 years while they worked down the railroads. So it's been a good part of my career to be relevant for the 150th anniversary.
That's great. Awesome.
Sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
Will you have this information? So I'm wondering, when we do our day of instruction, will we have this information we could give to our teachers at that time?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we should.
There's so much going on around the Transcontinental Railroad. So yeah, and it'll all be linked up. The Gateway to Learning educator workshops are probably already available. I know that the registration is going to open soon for the Gateway to Learning educator workshops. So I want you could be a hero in your district to certain teachers if you just let them know about the Gateway to Learning educator workshops, because it's 3 credits of college credit for $80, which is huge for your lane change. The courses will work for endorsement requirements often, and they're really great. They're week-long seminars called Gateway to Learning educator workshops from the Tanner Humanities Center. And I'm going to go there while I talk to you about it. Yeah.
Okay, I am looking at the information.
Thank you.
The cost is $90 to register, and it's $50 additional if they want the university credit. And the dates they're posting right now for your week, Chris, are July 15 through 19.
Okay.
And it says that registration begins March 1st, so it was out.
Yes. And I probably sent an email about it already, but I do send one a day, so that's So there's the link, just so you're aware. We've been supporting these workshops all the years that I've been here at the state in terms of financially, to help make sure that they're relatively inexpensive. So these are some of the courses that are available. As you can see, there's a lot of them. Okay. All right, awesome, thanks. All right, anything else you want to say before I turn the time over to Sean?
No, I just thank everybody for their time, and just be thinking of ways that you think archaeology might be relevant in your classroom, and reach out through Robert. He has our info, and we can find ways. Sean is really good with kids. I'm not. So he can show up and wow them with all his shinies. So that's my segue to Dr. Lambert.
Thank you, Chris. So again, I'm the public archaeologist for the state, and my primary responsibilities at the Utah Division of State History is to do public outreach and go out to the communities and teach kids, adults of all ages about archaeology, history, and science. And one thing I do is doing a lot of using technologies, 21st century technologies, to really get that younger generation really interested in archaeology and using these science. And one thing I'm doing right now, and this is an extension, this project is an extension of an exhibit that I created that is traveling around Utah for about 3 years, and it was an exhibit that was specifically tailored for the vision impaired, and it's pretty successful. It was pretty amazing. It debuted in October at the Utah School for the for the deaf and blind, and we had, I think, 500 people come and see it that first day, so it's getting a lot of cool recognition. And one of the reasons why this really inspired me was that exhibit, but the other reason is talking to some teachers, and they were telling me about their experiences with going to museums, and a lot of schools with their budgets, a lot of times they don't have the money to go to museums. A lot of the students may not have the money to go to these more expensive natural history museums, and so sometimes these are cut off from some of these more rural areas, in the schools in these more rural areas in Utah. So that really inspired me to use 3D printing and 3D modeling technology to create a series of micro museums, and this is kind of like a mock-up of one. And this is a Fremont Indian micro museum, and they are fully 3D printed micro museums. And I'll just pass that around, and you guys can take them out and handle them.
So how many artifacts have you done now?
I've been a little scan crazy, and I think over 200. So these series of micromuseums will represent 12,000 years of human occupation in Utah, from paleo people who lived, 10, 11,000, 12,000 years ago, all the way up to the early 20th century with the, transcontinental railroad grade, and talking about the cultural diversity of the people who helped make that possible, to the Fremont Indian people, and also talking about other cultural groups, especially maybe having a series of micromuseums that talk about LDS and their migration here in Utah. And so there's a lot of really wonderful possibilities for these micromuseums. And these will be held at the Utah Division of State History. And so what I would love is for teachers to be able to check them out from my Utah Public Archaeology Network website, which is still being built at the moment. And you'll be able to check them out. We'll send it to you for free. And what's really great, and what I would love to have help from, Robert and Wendy and anyone else who'd be interested, would be to create curriculum that goes with each of these micromuseums that teachers can use in conjunction with these 3D printed objects to teach their kids about archaeology, history, and science.
So just think about the possibilities, right? In terms of, first of all, the tactile, the stuff that you finally get to touch, a Pillings figurine, right, or whatever, is pretty amazing. Yeah. But can you imagine, let's say you had kids, their job was to write the text for that artifact, and you're going to create a little mini museum in your gym and they're responsible for doing the research on the Pillings figurine or the basket or the whatever, and then kind of be the docent. I mean, there's so many possibilities for that I just think would be really exciting. And you've been scanning away, and these are the other cool thing. No, go ahead. Do you have the Oklahoma flyer?
No, I didn't bring
I have
that.
one, and I downloaded the app, so I'm going to go grab that really quick while you guys talk.
Another thing I'm doing is what he's grabbing is I use augmented and virtual reality to get kids really interested in archaeology, and he's bringing something that's augmented reality. So I can print something on a 2D surface, and they can use an app and then scan it with their smartphones, and then that entire 2D surface comes to life in 3D. And there's a lot of ways that can be used to teach kids.
Are these micromuseums? Your website isn't up yet.
It's up, but we just got approval to actually put 3D files and everything up there, so it's going to take a while.
So
state red tape.
Can't check these out yet.
Not yet. No, this is going to be the next. I'm hoping maybe 4 to 5 months, beginning of the new semester in the fall.
Get that information out to Robert.
Oh yes, all this information will be sent out. So, do you have it up?
Yeah, I'll get that.
So this is a. So the reason why I love doing public archaeology, when I got my master's and PhD at the University of Oklahoma, I worked with 36 of the 39 federally recognized tribes, doing collaborative research and work with them, and as well as going to K-12 schools, teaching about archaeology and science. And it's just something that I've loved and enjoyed doing for the past 10 years. And so this was kind of a collaborative effort. This is Oklahoma Archaeology Month poster, which was in October of 2017. And it looks just like a regular poster, but each of these little circles are are photos that each of the federally recognized tribes donated to me for me to create this really kind of cool spiral design. And so what you can do, Chris, if you can hold that up.
If you play Pokemon Go, you know about this kind of augmented reality, right?
It's not. There it goes. You can bring it up further. No, that way. You can. Yeah, there you go. So as you can see that when it scans it, you can push on these buttons and 3D objects pop out, and or you can go backwards and you can listen to videos, which I don't think the sound's on, but
so it's like it takes the QR code to a way cooler level.
And it doesn't matter where you position it, so you can position on the side, it still stays on the poster and stuff. So kids absolutely love this. So you can create this 2D surface and make it this amazing interactive thing. And so this is bringing virtual reality free to teachers just by being able to print this out. And most teachers have, a smartphone. That's all it needs is a smartphone. It doesn't matter if it's Android or an iPhone, but you can use that technology.
Does it work with a tablet?
It works with tablets. And actually, the bigger surface screen is probably better too. But you also can buy Oculus goggles or virtual reality goggles for your iPhone or your Android, and then you can put them on and do it that way too. So you get really immersed into that. And one of the things I'm doing currently is doing a virtual reality of a Fremont Pit House, the same people who made those objects. And you'll put all your goggles on, you'll step into this 12 by 12 foot canvas, and this Fremont Pit House gets built right in front of your eyes, and you get to step into that Fremont house and be able to interact with the objects and understand about archaeology and the different practices and traditions people had 600 years ago. So it's pretty awesome stuff.
Say that is available now. These to be printed.
These?
Yes.
Yeah, those. I mean, I can send those. I've already sent it to Robert, but Robert can send it to you guys as well. But those are all good demonstrations of what we can do. And it's really cheap. So to create that was about $400. And so once you create an augmented reality poster, it's there forever, which is really nice. And so another thing, not only will you be able to check these 3D printed objects out, but all the 200 or so 3D models will be uploaded on my website, and if you want to create your own, if you have your own 3D printer at your schools, you can download them and create your own micro museum and teach from that. So I think a lot of schools now are having 3D printers. It's becoming more mainstream. So I just want to make sure that everything that I'm doing is available and for free for teachers. But that the curriculum development is something that it would be wonderful to help and get your guys experience in.
So there's Archaeology Month that we have in Utah,
That's in May.
and we need to do a better job of thinking about the implications for archaeology in Utah, and the fact that we have these internationally renowned treasures here.
Did you do any work with the geography department?
We work really closely with the geography, geological survey, and geography. No, I've never heard of the name.
So we're going to get something like
Is he named?
this, right? Sean from...
Yeah, I would think so. I would actually, I have all the 3D models, and I have everything to get it done. I just need to get a little bit of money to create the augmented reality, that takes no time to get done. So definitely by the summer, I would hope to get at least one of those things done. Is there anything that you guys would like to see in terms of augmented reality or in terms of micro museums in your classrooms?
Yeah, anything like Utah related?
Well, this will all be 100% Utah related.
Even like fifth grade curriculum for anything to do with American Revolution, or colonization,
Okay, yeah, this is...
bring like East Coast stuff to Utah virtually would be.
Oh, that would be really interesting. Actually, that's a good idea.
And the dinosaur bones.
Yeah, I've already scanned a few dinosaur bones. I could totally, it's not my expertise, but I could create a paleontological micro museum. I don't know.
Slowly build your own.
I don't see why not. The Prehistoric Museum may be really upset with me.
Slowly, yes, a giant jigsaw, a Lego.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if we want to go that deep history, I can definitely do it. So.
I've been out to Topaz several times, and there's still all kinds of things on the ground in Topaz, but also their museum in Delta. I think that might be a subject.
Yeah, I think we have just started, well, the BLM specifically has just started getting that relationship stronger and working with the Topaz Museum on some future public archaeology projects. So I can see that coming in the near future.
It's really cool. You know, the other thing that might be really kind of neat would be, think about like asking schools to recommend artifacts from their locality that should be scanned. You know, like if we think about, you know, what's an object or an artifact that represents your town or represents something in your history that they could be, and the schools could vote on it, decide what should be, and it may be, I don't know, I mean, just brainstorming about things like that would then, kids could say, oh, we're going to add to the collection with, it's kind of like the Antiques Roadshow concept of let's find out what you've got in your cupboard, you know, you could bring, and kids, and you know, in terms of artifacts and how do you digitally keep them from, I don't know, I mean, that's an idea. So
if kids want to do that, that would be fantastic, because then they could be stored on the Utah Public Archaeology Network website and then be available for future generations. I think that would be really wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, if they wanted to create their own
Wouldn't
3D.
it be a cool community engagement project, you know, to explore your neighborhood or your community and be able to...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just something to...
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's so much that can be done here.
And
It's
so,
mind-boggling.
so this is the thing that shocked me. You can tell Sean's big nerd time, right? But the objects that you're seeing, those were, how did you generate those 3D models?
So I do two ways that I create 3D models, and one is what we call photogrammetry, and that's just as easy as taking photos of the object in different 360 angles, and then throwing that into a 3D modeling software, and that modeling software will take each of those photos and stitches them into three-dimensional space and creates the 3D model from that. The more the more fun way and the faster way is 3D laser scanning, and we just got a 3D handheld laser scanner about 6 months ago, and now I can, rather than waiting 8 to 12, maybe even 24 hours for that software to create that 3D model via photographs, now I can create 3D models in real time. So as I'm scanning this coffee cup, that coffee cup is going to be turned into a 3D model at the exact same time. So, and kids absolutely love seeing that because they like to see what they're scanning and what they're making at the same time, and that's really fun. So that's how I create a 3D model. From that, you can just send it, you do a little bit of work in the middle, and then you can send it to a 3D printer and get it printed out. And the quality is pretty. If you know what you're doing, the quality is pretty amazing. We just did. I just laser scanned last week. This burned pillar from the Kearns Mansion that burned down in 1993, and it was this gorgeous wooden pillar that was like Art Nouveau. So it had all these wonderful like people in relief, kind of dancing and holding each other all around the pillar, and I scanned that and it printed it out really beautifully. So something that. What is so great is that, you know, that's something that we can never touch, not only first because of its age and its historical significance, because it's been burned, so you can't be able to touch that. The more you touch it, the more it degrades. And so this is being able to bring those tactile experiences otherwise no one will else be able to do, otherwise than like just professionals. Actually, I don't think they would even let us touch it. So, and another good reason is partnering with the Utah Division of Indian Affairs, and because a lot of these objects that I'm creating micromuseums from are these culturally sensitive objects that they don't want people to touch, and themselves cannot touch because they have these customs and beliefs that they're not able to touch these objects because they were already supposed to be in the ground in the first place. So creating these tactile 3D photographs, as they think of it, it creates a way in which for all the different 8 sovereign nations in Utah to be able to interact and engage with the objects that their ancestors made. So I would love for these micromuseums to be checked out by tribal cultural centers to be used in lessons, and so that their youth can touch and interact with these objects that their ancestors made. So there's a lot of applications.
Isn't that cool? Yep.
I just wanted to say, besides the resources that you're making, your job is something that our kids need to hear about. You know, what you can do with your knowledge, the fact that, I mean, I know kids that would love to do what you're doing. And so to hear that this is actually a job that's going on right now and they can do it with a degree, I think this is great.
Yeah, and this position, public archaeology is a pretty new phenomenon in the archaeological world. About 15 years or so, it's really been getting more popular in the last 5 years. And I think in Utah, we haven't had a public archaeology emphasis in the last 6 or so years. And so I've been here, it'll be a year next week. And so this is the first time we've kind of revitalizing that aspect of our division. So it's really exciting. And I do go to schools and talk. And if you guys, Robert has all my information, and he can. I'll get you my information and send it out.
Sure.
But I do something called Project Archaeology curriculum. Has anyone heard of Project Archaeology curriculum? Well, yes. we have a state representative, Sam coordinator, who is all she does. Her name is Sam Kirkley, and all she does is Project Archaeology curriculum. And she's supposed to go out to schools all over Utah and hold these workshops. But I'm doing a workshop in probably late spring, a Project Archaeology workshop where teachers can come and learn how to use this Common Core curriculum and be able to teach that in their classrooms. And that course, it counts as credit for teachers who to come, and it's 100% paid for, so it's no cost to you guys. So, and I'll have more information on that when it gets, built more.
Yeah, the BLM, Jeannie Moe, I don't know if anybody remembers Jeannie, but I mean, I taught Project Archaeology stuff back in my Utah Studies class 20 years ago.
Yeah, it started in Utah in 1990, then it moved to University of Montana a few years after that. It didn't take too long, but it's a nationwide used curriculum. They got archaeologists, scientists, social studies experts, mathematicians, all come together to create this really wonderful curriculum. And you can go to projectarchaeology.org and look at their curriculum. And if that's something that you're interested, you can get in contact with me and we can set something up. But yeah, projectarchaeology.org. And
Peggy is a methods teacher at the university. Peggy McCandless, who just stepped out for a second. She is a methods teacher up at the University of Utah, working with elementary methods teachers. So it would also be great. You could hit a lot of teachers at one time by speaking to methods classes and letting them know about careers in social studies that kids should need to learn about. I think that'd be great. So
yeah.
Peggy, I was just saying that it would be great for your methods kids to hear Sean and Chris talk about their careers, even in your class. I mean, just talking about the possibilities for having guest speakers, or just so kids see that social studies, this completely artificial distinction between STEM and everything else is shit. Okay, it's not accurate. I mean, kids in social studies they have science and mathematical and engineering questions and answers and things to think about. It's like, okay, you want to build the Lucin cutoff across the Great Salt Lake. You can do that as an engineer, but let's also think about the implications for that. Look at the salinity level on one side versus the other. You fly over the Great Salt Lake, you can see orange and blue, right? It's like, people have got to think these things through. And so that's where social studies comes in. So thank you both very much. Can you give a round of applause to these two for their, because I'm really excited. And one of the things that I really want to make you aware of is that it's a real win-win for Sean and for Chris for more people to be aware of their work means that we have more possibility for ensuring that those positions stay funded and supported in the state budget. Yes. Because we lost the state archaeologist in terms of funding, right? And if that were to occur at this point, there would be a hue and cry. There should be from all of you, because you see what impact their work can have with kids. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
All right. Speaking of hue and cry, History Day.
Okay. See, aren't we lucky to work with these guys?
Yeah.
We're lucky to work with you, Wendy.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Have a good day, you too.
How many of you guys here are not very familiar with History Day? And I don't want to put people on the spot, but some of y'all rotate in and out of this meeting a bit. Yeah, okay. So the first thing I'm going to send around is just my one page. This is why History Day is worth people's time. It is a program that is designed to get kids engaged in actually doing history instead of just memorizing names, faces, names, dates, facts. I guess I should turn on my mic. And so we want them to actually do historical research using primary and secondary sources. And what makes it great for kids is that they get to decide what they want to research. So we're not assigning everybody to work on the War of 1812. You're going to lose the whole classroom, right? So there is a lot of choice and there is creativity. Students can create a final product that it's not just a paper and it's not just a poster board. They can do a museum type exhibit, they can make a documentary film, build a website, do a live performance, or they can write a paper. So these two elements of choice are what kind of provides the avenue for students to start engaging with history in a different way. And kids really like it. So if it's something that you want to learn more about, spring is a great time to just see it in action because we have competitions that are held pretty much all over the state, and you should come and judge at one of them. Or just if you're too busy to come and judge, you should come and just walk around and talk to the students. So the blue handout gives the dates and locations of our regional contests and our state contests. And at the bottom there, it has a link where you can sign up to come and judge. It is really the quickest and most effective way to just see the program in action and begin thinking about teachers you work with who might really like this and sort of start building those bridges. So it's also, this is me giving a shameless plug because we need a ton of judges to make this program effective. We have over 7,000 students who are doing the program statewide. And we work, our judges work in teams of 2 or 3 to work on about 10 projects per team. So if you do the math, we need a lot of people to come and judge to make it an effective experience for the students. So I really encourage you to think about teachers you're working with who might want to know more about the program, who might, or who would just be great judges that would like to come and do this with us. I'm going to throw it open to people who are here who kind of have been involved a little bit and just ask you to share kind of why you think it's valuable for the students that are doing it in your district. Anybody want to share their thoughts? Scott?
Okay. My light's red, so I'm on. We just judged our Union Middle School has, our district that keeps expanding our History Day program every year, and Union Middle School's been doing it for several years. And they're a fairly impacted school, but they're not, one of the most impacted schools in the state for sure. But they have quite a few kids on free and reduced lunch, and the common element at that school is that, and a lot of schools like it, is that kids don't do their homework, or they're not going to do it at home, or they're not going to, and so you have all these complaints. Well, yesterday we had the 8th grade judging their projects, and they have about 340 kids or so in their 8th grade between the two teachers. And of all of those kids, as we judged the program, only 3 kids or so, 3 maybe 4, didn't have projects completed. And of the 4 that didn't have projects completed, as I interviewed them, one kid who didn't have his poster board ready or anything like that, he sat and talked to me for about 8 or 9 minutes about Pearl Harbor, of the research that he'd done and all the information that he'd learned from it. And this was a kid that probably didn't do a whole heck of a lot of any work, but he was able to talk pretty confidently about Pearl Harbor for several minutes. And it's that kind of impact that these kids get, is that even if they're not going to do their normal work or take their notes in class or whatever, because they're they're driven and inspired by what they're choosing to research. They have amazing link to that topic and are get excited about it, even if they don't do it. And the variety of projects at that one school, I mean, we had everything from the standard Pearl Harbor, civil rights things like that, to a guy that was passionate about cars that did a big thing on Henry Ford. We had people doing Malala. We had people doing, just the variety of projects that come out is just amazing. The kids that get so passionate about it. So I've been a big proponent of History Day the last few years and watch it grow and just the impact it has on the kids.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Desi?
I'll do exactly what you said. And then in addition, when you've done the PD for our teachers, I mean, they appreciate it so much and it's so great, it's so relevant. And I think they also appreciate how they can sort of baby step it into it, because it can be a little overwhelming for some teachers to say, oh, this is going to be what. But they recognize the value in it and they want to get to that point. We've had our teachers that have been involved in it every year just get stronger and stronger, and the kids are just so engaged with it, and it's, it's absolutely worth it in whatever way we can support them in doing it. So
Yeah, I think that's one of the big keys I've found is that the teachers don't have to do it as a massive thing. I mean, we have a couple of teachers that do it as a weekly thing, that they do it every Friday. They work on their history project all year long. We have some that do it kind of once a month. We have some that do it as kind of a unit that takes a few weeks to get it done. And so it can be overwhelming as you initially look at it sometimes. But to know that it can be done in a wide variety of ways in classes, and it doesn't have to be all-consuming. Sometimes you have different levels of projects depending on the time that you really focus on it. But even at Union Middle School, where they've been doing it for several years, this year, instead of having the kids choose a subject early on in the year and then stress about it all year, they did a big part of it by teaching them how to use the tools, how to do the research, how to do the citing sources, and they did all the groundwork, and so the kids felt confident in the research skills, and then they had them choose a topic much later in the year, and then kids didn't have to think about it for forever, but the skills they built. And they had their 7th grade teachers teaching them some of those same skills also, so when they get into 8th grade, they don't have to, even though 7th grade doesn't do History Day, they teach some of the tools that are used for it, the research elements, so that when they get to 8th grade, they don't have to study that much, don't have to do that much work to get them going on it. So there's lots of different varieties of ways to get kids involved in it, and it's just it's a very impactful program.
Yeah, and I would just say, I love getting to the contest season where we can start to interact with the kids and they have knowledge and they want to tell you about it and they are really interested in the work that they've done. And I think they're going to take away from, the 1 or 2 years that they might do a History Day project, they're going to remember that topic. But they're learning how to think historically. And they can apply that, to current events, things that they're concerned about, but they also build this really great toolbox of college prep skills. Writing a research paper, what a bibliography even is, plagiarism, how to format footnotes, things that if you're trying to do this in individual assignments, it seems irrelevant, but History Day allows them to package that together in a way that they can see, oh, this does matter because I'm going to demonstrate the work that I did through my bibliography so that the judges can see where my information is from. So it has just a lot of downstream impacts that students will take with them.
We really want to expand it in lots of ways, but as it grows, it means we need more judges. And there's only so much human capacity Wendy will have, so we need your help for that. But I think that couple of cool things. One is that elementary kids are going to be going to state this year. That they normally didn't do that, so they're having some cool opportunities there that they will remember their entire lives. The other thing to remember is that we don't have as many high school kids participate as we would like, And so that's why if your district were to take on the charge of saying, you know what, we're going to try to grow the high school, you are going to have so many high school kids going to nationals because the pond is smaller. I promise you, you guys could be like, yeah, canyons, we kicked some butt. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. Push high school, okay? Because you're gonna have amazing results. A lot of the kids who do high school work sometimes do it completely without much support from teachers because they're so excited about the process in 8th grade and they continue it when they go to 9th and 10th. But that's pretty much it, right? I mean, Wendy, I don't know that how much in the upper grades, how far, they could go all the way, could they be seniors?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We'll have kids do it all the way through high school. But you're right. Most of the kids who are doing it in high school in Utah right now did it through a class in middle school, loved it, and have just continued on. And truly, by the time they get to that, they've done it 2 or 3 years and they are just more mature. I mean, they really can do the research on their own. But Robert is right. There are opportunities for high school teachers because the pond is a lot smaller. And for me, it's that college set of skills that is so relevant for high school kids that I would love to see us grow that division.
There are scholarship opportunities. There are some real things you could change kids' lives with if you just did a little focus on trying to grow the high school piece. I can also say, is there anything else you want to add, Wendy? Because we need to move on, and we're going to segue into Naomi.
Okay. Can I ask 2 questions or
sure.
2 comments? One is I sent out the request for judges to my teachers, and anyone who was interested, I went to the district, and the district's willing to cover their sub, so it's not hard to try and find a few if they're willing to do that. And ideally, I would like to target teachers that would be willing to consider the program, because I don't think we have anyone in our district that's doing it anymore. The other thing is, on the form when I signed up to be a judge, I either on that right there, or I got some email from you that said, just plan on judging the categories that you marked. But if I marked a whole bunch, how do I find out what I really am judging?
Okay, so the form is designed to recruit judges for all of the regional contests and the state contests. And so the message is, if you sign up for all of the days that you sign up to judge, we will plan on you. But we won't assign your categories until we get closer to each contest. And then you'll hear back from the local coordinator as that person is sort of mapping judges into judging teams. But they will take your category requests into consideration. I mean, we wouldn't ever put you on a category that you didn't volunteer to do. Okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
So I had a great opportunity. Jesse, I think you were judging, you were doing websites and things like that at Clayton, and I judged a performance at Clayton of this 8th grade girl who portrayed Elizabeth Cady Stanton's daughter and talked about her mom and trying to keep the legacy alive of her mother's work. And so she was acting as if it were 1920, and she was amazing. And she'll be going to state, and I wouldn't be surprised if there weren't other things in her future. But 2 things. She's going to be a great resource for you, Naomi Watkins, in terms of your work around suffrage. The other thing that she inspired me or reminded me of was, there's a guy locally named Loki Mulholland who works to keep his mother's work alive, Joan Trumpauer Mulholland, who's still alive. I mean, it's not like she's passed yet, but that's his vision, is the legacy of that work. Karen Korematsu, her work is to keep her father, Fred Korematsu's legacy alive. Fred Korematsu fought internment and was like, no, I'm not going, no. And so it was kind of cool to see this kid also portraying and keeping alive the memory of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and she is awesome. And so Naomi Watkins is here from Better Days 2020 to kind of give us an update. And I pulled up the website so I can drive to any information.
Drive with that cool.
Exactly, with the new license plate, exactly. So will you pull that mic over so you can, so people can, and will you introduce yourself and who you are and what we're doing? And
I've been here before, so I recognize a lot of you. But so I'm with Better Days 2020, and we're all about women's suffrage in the year 2020, since it's the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment. And actually, tomorrow is the 149th. That doesn't sound as cool as 150, but 149th anniversary of a Utah woman voting. So that there's a bunch of stuff that's actually happening tomorrow that I want to let you know that it's happening, and then what's going to be happening in 2020. So we've talked before about how there's a new statue going to National Statuary Hall with Dr. Martha Hughes Cannon, and the committee of that statue is announcing the sculptor tomorrow. So that would be happening, and that will then be unveiled next year. So the plan is hopefully that it will be sitting in the rotunda of the state capitol before it goes to Washington, D.C. But in that interim period between the capitol and the capital, that it would travel around the state in a big truck. Yeah, so England Trucking Company has donated their truck to go and take Martha to Washington, and so there will be big celebrations happening around the state to send her off to Washington, which is actually really fitting, given that's how the women delegates often work too. So that's happening, and the other thing that's happening next year too is there will be a memorial unveiled outside of Council Hall, which is the building that's just south of the state capitol. Where the tourism office now is. That's actually where the first vote happened 149 years ago tomorrow. So there'll be a memorial there that's going to be unveiled on February 14th, 2020. And we're hoping to do things to involve school kids. Robert and I have been talking about this, to also have teachers come to this and make it really a big event that the state is celebrating. So those are some things to look forward to, towards 2020. But as far as the website's concerned, Robert, if you go to that educational, and while I'm talking, I also brought buttons in case you want a button, so you can pass those around. Since I last came, we have unveiled some more lessons, and they're more to do with the national suffrage movement, but infusing the Utah story into, if you go to, scroll down a little bit. Go to educator resources. Okay. And then they're split by elementary and secondary over there on the...
Right.
So, there's tons of lessons, of course, that are out there. Some really good ones about the women's suffrage movement. The difference with these is that it talks about Utah within that national movement. So, if it's talking about... the Silent Sentinels who protested outside the White House, we're talking about the Utah women too who did that, right? Because we did find some Utah women who were part of the Silent Sentinels who were there for the Night of Terror, so they were beaten, put into the hospital for their protesting. I actually found out that most of the Utah women actually shunned those other Utah women who were protesting outside the White House, but it's still a cool story. Yeah, because they were totally seen as these radicals, which they were nationally anyway, and so...
but it's also, that in itself is an important lesson for kids to understand.
Yeah.
Within a social movement, there could be the Black Panthers, and there could be Martin Luther King. There could be the Silent Sentinels, and there was a split.
Right, Alice Paul and Carrie Chapman Catt for sure. Yep. So there's lessons that talk about abolition and how that led to women's suffrage, and also talking about how there was an abolition movement here in Utah. Mormons were actually often portrayed as slaves, and how polygamous women were also portrayed as slaves, right? So the same narratives were happening here in Utah for different purposes, but also similar purposes. So there's things there. And then looking at the tactics and strategies that the suffragists used, so like parades and protesting and petitions, but then also showing the Utah women as part of that.
And that actually ties right into some of our standards in the secondary standards regarding helping kids understand what are the methods and the tactics and the messages that people used during social justice movements. So, perfect.
And then the other thing that you might be interested in, if you go to those tabs on the left, Robert, there's one that says primary text sets.
Okay.
Which I need to. So this is the part I think that a lot of us will think is really cool because like we've been, pining, is that the word? I don't know. Culling, I guess that's the word, through all these archives and things trying to find these different documents, and we keep finding things. Like the historian just found an equal rights banner that's like shoved in some box in the BYU archives, so that's pretty cool. So if you click on one of these, it doesn't really matter which one you click on, Robert.
Well, let's do Martha.
Okay. It has all these primary source documents about these different events or people. So teachers can then use those primary sources however they would like. They could use them within the lesson, but if they wanted to use them, either for History Day, which Better Days is supporting the Women's History Award, but these would be great resources for that project too. So they're totally downloadable. Martha Hughes Cannon's diplomas are actually hung in the health building that's named after her. They're just sitting there in the elevator. Well, not in the elevator, but what do you call that? The space, the alcove, the
lobby.
The lobby of the elevator. Because she has 4 diplomas, and then it has, that's where they are, which kind of is hidden away, which I think is a shame. The other thing, so I was just with Jessie and her teachers in Salt Lake, and we had a really great professional development. So we are open to coming to you, and also in the fall we are offering regional professional developments, kind of like Robert is doing for the Transcontinental Railroad, because the big push again is those anniversaries in 2020. So figuring if we do the training in the fall, people are prepped for that time. And I also learned yesterday, Robert, that the state is going to do a story map, like they did for the railroad.
Oh, cool. Great.
So that's happening too.
Great.
I probably missed something, but
that's
do
great.
you guys have questions?
Can we get a hold of you through that website?
Yeah, I didn't bring any cards with me today, but my email is very simple. It's just naomi@betterdays2020.com.
And is there a way to contact you here on the website?
I think it goes to like a generic, I get it eventually. Someone forwards it to me, but.
Right. So these.
Or you could ask Robert.
Yeah.
I want to plug, the
Yeah.
PD was excellent.
Thanks.
Really,
What grades did you do, Jessie?
I opened it to 4th through 12th. And then we're going to have you come back, when we can get more teachers there, but yeah, it was excellent.
And who comes? Like, what grade levels did you see the most interest in?
All, but we had some conflicts with some upper grades, so ours was mostly.
It was mostly middle.
Upper elementary, middle.
Okay.
But they weren't all they aren't all history teachers either. So.
Yeah, I would imagine language arts teachers are going to be interested as well. I guess we can play well with others, so, we have to.
Oh, and speaking of English teachers too, there is, KUED does have a documentary about Martha Hughes Cannon that you can stream for free. It's an hour, so it is a little,
No, that's perfect for social studies teachers.
It's perfect for a class period. But we partnered with KUED, and they do this thing called a book club in a box. So it wouldn't necessarily be for your students, but in your own personal life, if you are in a book club, you can request this book club in a box, and they send you the book and all these different tools. And so you as a book club would watch the documentary and read the book, which is Sue Monk Kidd's The Invention of Wings, which talks about the Grimke sisters who were early abolitionists, and talking about the similarities between those stories, which I think is really interesting. And now you're pulling up the illustrations. It reminds me, Brooke Smart, who's our illustrator, is supposed to get all 50 done by June, which is me really driving her. But those 50 originals, you can request them through the Utah, the Division of Arts and Heritage, because it is going to be a traveling exhibit. So schools and libraries and museums can request to have those originals come to you, and that would be starting in fall of 2019. So I believe that information goes up in the spring if you want to request that to be part of your library or whatever, which is really cool.
Mean.
And then not the originals, because we have the 4th floor of the Capitol in 2020, so all those, all the illustrations will be there, just not the originals, since we know can't trust them to be up there on the 4th floor. But those will be there in the Capitol too.
Yeah.
So we're also pushing that if students are going to the Capitol for their tour, right, and that usually takes half a day, that you could easily add on the suffrage walking tour that we have on the website. And even if you just went to Council Hall, which is just down the hill, right, and also the city and county building, that would be a nice add-on to talk about for your field trips, since sometimes schools are looking for something to do, so.
Great.
Okay.
Any other questions about Better Days 2020? It's a pretty awesome website, great resources,
Guys.
expert, and a great lesson designer in Naomi. So
Thanks, Robert.
awesome. Good work.
And thanks for all your support too.
Glad to do it. Okay. And even Peter is like, fine. Martha. It's an inside joke regarding Philo Farnsworth, so yes. Hate to bring that up, but I just did.
Some are very special.
Yes. Right.
No, I mean, I don't mean that facetiously.
I know. We'll make sure it's someplace special.
What Robert's talking about is I go clear back, and I and some of my students worked to get Philo Farnsworth created. And that was a long time ago. So I had some investment.
Right.
Keeping Philo around. And also I had the opportunity of teaching some of his descendants.
Oh, cool.
I had a little bit of investment.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Give a round of applause to Naomi. It's cool to see people doing some good work. Okay. So, tell me what you would prefer to do regarding the elementary standards. Because there are two goals that I have. One goal would be to have us look at and think about the crosswalk, the connection between science standards and social studies. Okay, the science standards that are up for revision are on the website, and there's a public review survey where it would be helpful to get feedback regarding the standards to the science folks, so that and these are the upcoming public hearings, March 20th in Cedar City, March 26th, and then there are online hearings as well. One's on February 28th and one's on March 13th. So this is science, and the reason why I think this is critical is because it's a real opportunity for us to both support outstanding science thinking, but also think about the connections with our elementary, because these are the elementary standards, the elementary content. So that's one option. The other option is to just begin by spending some time digging into and looking at the existing standards with an eye toward just making notes here in the standards regarding things that you're like, oh, I bet that this needs an update, or this could be changed, or this could be tweaked. The difference, I think, is pretty stark between the existing elementary standards and the secondary standards. In terms of our elementary standards have a lot of students will understand X, ... which was the terminology we used 10 years ago. But how do you assess that standard? Especially as we go to standards-based grading, you just walk around and say, so do you understand that the Constitution is important? Corey, do you understand that?
Yeah, one day it is.
Yeah. Okay. Or maybe he's like, or he nods. Okay. And that's how we assess that. We have our standards now at the secondary level are much more about demonstrations of proficiency. So students will craft an argument about why they feel the Constitution is a transformative document. It's a very different thing than saying students will understand the importance of the Constitution, right? So what I have, I have copies of the existing standards, and what I'd like for you to think about, because we can do, I could even offer to have a few people just work independently on creating some kind of crosswalk document between the elementary standards and the proposed elementary science standards. And that could be something we do separately instead of today. Okay. So my first question is, would it be useful to have such a document that says, here's what they're learning in third grade science, and here are the applications and the connections in third grade social studies?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Second thing is, does it make sense to just, I could put a call out and just pay a couple of teachers to do that work, you know, and create a document that where they just kind of brainstorm and think through and craft that. Does that seem to make sense? So then what I would ask for you today would be to just spend some time reading with some, you know, like team up, look at this, choose a grade level. I mean, you can even just choose, like, we can just go third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, or you can decide whatever grade you want and just take one of these and look at and read and just focus in on the standards a little bit and just make notes. And then you'll turn these back into me as just a way for us to start the conversation about what I want us to think about is, are the elementary standards, do we need to do a revision of the standards? And if so, what do we think that looks like? Okay. A lot of the feedback we got from the survey that we did of elementary teachers was that it's not that the standards are the issue, it's that we're just not teaching social studies much in the elementary grades. And I gave you that marginalization infographic at our last social studies meeting, right? I mean, we've been talking about the marginalization of social studies for 10 years or more, but I can't tell you how much energy came about because we put it into a picture, right? We made an infographic and now people are like, oh my gosh. So never underestimate the importance of making a bar graph or a pie chart or a cute little bird squawking about an issue, right? That's a lesson for all of you. Make infographics. Because there are people nationally talking about the marginalization of social studies. If you Google it, it'll pop up right away on any website. Trust me. I'll pull it up here in a second. But I do think that we have an opportunity to kind of think about elementary standards for a bit and give me some feedback. Does that make sense? All right, so I'm going to hand these out. Just grab one. I believe that let me grab one here, Jessica. There's a lot. There's enough that you can probably. Okay, so these coming this way are the upper grades, and those are K2. All right. So I don't care what grade level you choose. Does anybody have dibs? Anybody want to look at a specific grade level? All right, so I got fourth. I've got a bid for fourth. Do I have a bid for third? Fifth. All right, so you're going to look at fifth. All right, so we got fourth and fifth. So you don't have fourth. Here's fourth.
I have fourth.
You've got fourth here, but I can give you a hard copy too. Because then it'd be great if you talk about it, but then write on this, okay? So there's the elementary grade. Just send that over, okay? So you're going to only have K2. You guys only have the early grades, K1 and 2. So you can decide. So we've got fifth and fourth. You guys will do sixth? Great, okay. Neil, do you have a preference? I've got K1 or 2 at this point. Or third. I don't have third grade. So Neil, do you want to do third grade?
Sure.
Wendy, do you want to work with Neil on third grade? Sure. Is that all right? So you just look at third grade. And then I need somebody here to look at either kindergarten, first or second, or you can look at all.
They're combined, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combined, it's separated out kind of a weird way. I didn't do that, those standards, but,
Yeah.
okay. Amber, do you want to work with, down here with the gang and look at those early grades?
So are you running out science standards now, or?
No,
see what needs to be updated.
Yeah, let's just look at what needs to be updated, okay?
Social studies.
There were two ideas. One is connect to science, but we'll have other people do that. I just want you to look right now at reading through the standards, because it may be raise your hand if you just recently read the standards, other than Peggy, right? You haven't looked at them for a while. So take a look at them, and just any comments you want to write on the physical document itself about, oh, that's not clear, or we could push this a bit in terms of proficiency, or there's too much in the standards, or I don't care what frame you want to look at, okay? Is there any way you want to frame this? Any other, you're all experts in how to do this. Anything else you'd recommend for the questions for us to think about? I didn't create guiding questions for you to think about.
Is the goal, are we going to read, are the standards going to be rewritten?
Nobody's told me, but what I can say is that the board met, and they, at the last board meeting, their question was, what standards have not been revised for a while? And social studies are the oldest, the elementary grades are the oldest standards. So it is likely that the standards will at least be looked at by them. And so I would like to be able to say, we've had people looking, and here are some of their recommendations, okay? So I'm going to give you time to read for a bit, okay? And if you haven't had a donut yet, to kind of power through.
Took over by you. Oh, very good.
Should be a very good.
We're looking at the K through
The elementary school.
to standard. That's okay, but it's not much. So it's divided into culture, citizenship, geography, and financial literacy, and it's like, I would tell the difference together and height. And it's very, but I mean, they're kindergarten, that makes sense. But I feel like by second grade, they kind of do it. I don't necessarily like the K through 2 all the same. I feel like 2 should at least be separate.
I wish we did that before. They are different.
And grade 3 starts with community, right? So this is more like school, home, and then third grade is first grade state, and then fifth grade is nation.
So are they similar to what they do in other, are they just separated into standard strands?
No, these haven't been touched since 2009.
Oh, so these are the old ones?
These are the old ones. We haven't even started new ones. It's just we're supposed to write current back on. These are the current ones that have been around for a really long time. And really, I don't think any changes happen from to this, even with the current draft in 2009. I think this is what I learned in 1989 when I was in kindergarten. Right. The standard colors.
So they're separated into strands?
Because they haven't, yeah, so they did separate it into these. They're calling them strands, but then they're still standards.
Like a standard strand, first strand, standard.
Yes.
These would be interesting.
So, yeah, she's also wanted to.
Introduction, first of all.
Yeah. They did that.
So I
They mentioned what they wanted to change those. The social system.
Right, well, it's oh, that's true. It's
Self-family.
And there's a lot of, it's vernacular, there's a lot of, just recognize the difference. How do you measure that? Recognize the difference between, but how do you measure that?
For all the way through K-12. And so the first grader in particular, but several of the younger grades, that's the summer. They follow them, how do we put that as
Describe, discuss, resolve, below it's all. Identify, recognize. So what do you do? Thumbs up if you know the difference between the principal and the teacher. You got it. Good job. There you go. There's our well, and I know what Merrett K students too is just usually terrible excited. They're like, oh, they're teaching it. Science. I'm in an interesting position because I come to these meetings and I'm the high school instructional builders, but they say I have say in social studies, but I really don't. I have no money. The curriculum specialist has money. And she's the secondary social studies curriculum specialist right now. They're getting out all this to do like one-to-one. And that's what I'm So we want one-to-one Chromebooks, which surprisingly, so that we would have tons of problems with. No, smooth. What the problem happened was they let teachers choose whether they wanted to learn something or Service Pro, and the teachers chose things they didn't know how to work. So that's where the problem came about.
How long
Next year, we'll go to both junior high.
not having.
No, so just the high school checks them out, and I mean, they take them home. So,
We're in 2 high schools, 3 junior highs, 4 other high schools.
okay, and I mean, we have, I think in the junior highs, we have one-to-one, but we're not checking them out to them with textbooks on it, it is their personal.
I was thinking that now.
It's theirs until they graduate.
Whoever the top kid to go.
And we've always had 2 kids that have broken their legs, so luckily they take the $25. One the first day. You're like, well, you don't know what somebody else is going to do. The girl who came in trying to get with the study on it. Or her like, what about it? And broke down.
What are you discovering?
The measurable quality of recognized.
Demonstrate.
Demonstrate, identify. And Corey said they created benchmarks in Evo for this.
Last summer.
Washington County.
They've already done it, maybe it might help us if you got benchmarks. It could then serve as
Very much boiled it down.
These small benchmarks during the course of the week. They will be piloting them on the street.
Yeah.
Teaching 300 students
The benchmarks that were written.
Right, that have this from a proficiency based kind of philosophy. So teachers, although they are used to measure their throw, it's really not beneficial in any way. So we might have gotten kids might have learned before we had to put the benchmarks. Really could be.
And the benchmarks, well, because funny enough, they made me give the Grand National this benchmark when I was in Murray as a pilot it, so I was the tester. I don't know why, because Grand Murray, and they are so low. That it, I mean, a lot of them DSC1, and they had me give it to, and Murray gives the regular ones, and I had they started to like pump up our score again, and my kids really that, and it's like, well, that took 7 minutes.
It's not a great benchmark.
No, so when the English dance fifth grade was that, I mean, every kid would get.
Well, our secondary, that culture and problems.
Because what, are you using like a Chino?
Yeah.
And that's where.
Well, we are going all the way down to kindergarten.
There's no cost.
That's huge.
They wrote them and they're piloting it, and done some of them, and the kindergarten first grade, they're gonna do by paper pencil, some other way, the teachers can go around the kindergarten.
Because I mean, a lot of the standard is like classroom procedures. Especially for kindergarten, how to walk down the hall, how to, the geography, yeah, the rules, the compliance piece, yes. Or even, I think some of it is taught, the culture I think is taught in their English language arts or with their holiday parties. Is all see, Christmas around the world, or how do they celebrate winter around the world, and there's the culture. So it's the holiday parties and the reading the stories that how they're teaching social studies. Arts and crafts, that's true. Combine it all. Holiday, winter party, let's talk about
Macaroni.
Let's paint a Dutch shoe and then have candy left in it outside the hall by the PTA mom.
So you sound like, you know.
Sorry. Oh, yeah. I do like that. What are you talking about? Financial literacy, but I do like that is a piece of it. Yeah.
Yeah, although well, I mean, Pam's.
I don't think it's the appropriate time of size. Still like yes. In kindergarten, isn't it? But
I'd rather save that other money.
And I think that's her
How does my family take the rest of it?
Okay, well, I sent an email, but I guess I'll resend it.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. I'm probably gonna have to leave a little early.
Okay.
But
That's fine.
grab all my paper.
Cool. Yes, please do. Yeah, take this one too. I know who you are.
Yeah.
I've signed up. I've got my map of all my History Day judging, so.
Yes. Kind of an overachiever.
Well, I really, but for me, it's one way for me to get out of my teachers. Who I don't know.
That's true. That's true.
I want to see the kids, but I also really want to tell the teachers how important it is that they do it. Not that you don't do it.
No, I think it means something different from you. I mean,
I guess you just have to use your whatever position you have in the best way. So.
Right. The awesome note that you wrote to Kim Perry. Wrote it and put it on Facebook.
No.
Because He would just nutshell the whole thing, you know. So it was perfect. You know, I'm glad you can come and help because everybody who's running a contest is like, I need people to judge. It's very stressful to get enough people there. He's killing it. I think it's just so great. I love, Melissa Crandall's there at Union, and she was telling me about it. We can do this with the There's no reason not to. And she's kind of sharing that attitude with other teachers in our school district. So he's got 2 teachers this year and a whole grade of students. And this is from like 30 students 4 years ago in his district. It's just like
She'll send me a copy with her copy.
And then you get to Michael Ford. Video
do you want to keep these?
I might use them with when I go out and do the transcon thingy. All right, so let's just check in. Do you need, give me a sense of how much more time you need to kind of dig into the grade levels you're at. About 5, all right, gonna give you 5 more minutes, please.
Like thinking like a historian, thinking like, you know, those kind of historian skills. I don't see them included very heavily here.
And history is not really, it's culture, citizenship, there's no history. I mean, they're saying citizenship is the history, but they're saying the pledges and,
It seems like
I'll do it this way. Cool. Here's a chair, and I'll get you pictures. We have about 5 minutes on this conversation.
I've got a second grader right now.
And they're doing it.
I could show her. So let's talk about this primary what it could be.
they can be able to identify historic people, reasons and things.
I don't see that here. Well, how that's written, I don't know. I mean, the science department, one of them talks about the secondary standard has the content.
You guys sit wherever, you're adults, you sit wherever you want.
I don't know if that's the best way to approach it. History is social studies, but it seems like that should be, some skills should be thought about. What skills are we, vertical line of skills are we looking at? Those kids get to figure out, I have some skills to be successful in a history class. Like looking at documents, writing a little bit, read and write a little bit.
Yeah, well, we're even looking at standard 3 of kindergarten where it says identify maps and growth. Like, I think by the time they're kindergarten, they could also be taught where to find themselves on that map and growth.
So, we definitely got sidetracked, but I definitely, like, my coworker in my office is over science, and, you know, is talking about all the 3D science and the cross-cutting, you know, concepts and stuff. And as we quit 4th grade, there's definitely physical geography, you know, that would cross over with the science. But I really think it would be a good practice to pull in, like, my coworker, Ashley, and we also have an elementary science person, but I think with the new standards, I think you could build that crossover and help teachers,
Try it out.
you know, get to the social studies along with the science, because I think it is getting forgotten. But I know, as we're looking at them,
They're not your host.
I would like to see them look more like the secondary. But I also think for elementary teachers to just teach all the content areas, they might be with so much inquiry. Although we have so many schools in our district that's where what is stuff and where it is.
Right.
So anyway, I don't know how much we've gotten done here. but you were suggesting possibly pulling teachers from both, and I think that would probably be I think to make those, so, anyway,
So let's talk about the 28th.
Okay.
So what are you thinking in terms of when we start and end?
okay.
What's normal? I mean, like, because you've got to have teachers, do they check in to make sure they have a sub that showed up before they can come?
I think they just get their subs. I know some are already have their subs planned. I thought we would start at 8, and I have a nice, really, it's probably a room about this size. I have 31 teachers registered so far, but I'm pretty sure I'll have more than that. So I'm just telling you tell me about how long is the training? Should we give them 2.5 hours? And then
We'll give us some time to...
8, I was thinking like 8 to 11, so 3 hours. And then,
But I mean, you used to have options, we could buy, yeah.
I just wonder what we.
anyway, what do you think? 8, I haven't really thought about the time. If we started at 8, and if we went to 11:30 and we had the other one start, that would be 3 hours. I think if we did 8 to 11 and 12 to 3, or 11:30. I think for the afternoon teachers, if they're junior high, they start school at 8:15. Their second period is usually, I have to look at their schedule and see when their second period.
I don't want to keep them longer than they're normally in school.
They're typically done at 2:45.
All right, so plan on 11 at 2:45.
Okay.
So then we'll just work backwards.
Okay.
We do 2.5 hours. That'll be like 12:15 with 12 to 2.
I think we can do 12 to 2:45, and that could include lunch.
Yeah.
You know, eating while they, whatever. Okay.
And then we can feed them, because the nice thing is that we've got money from Wendy to handle the, because I can't pay for food, but she can.
The lunch and the subs, and I'm having them get their subs, and everything is going to go out of my account, my social studies budget, and then I will just invoice or have my secretary, not my secretary, one of our financial secretaries invoice Wendy, and then they'll just reimburse that budget. So,
and then, so I have, like, maybe Chris Merrett will be able to come for part of it.
So, and I went on that, hey, in fact, and you know I'm working on my composite endorsement, and I'm taking Utah geography right now, and this week, we're actually studying Native Americans. Even though we do this field trip thing, and we're supposed to take pictures, and it's like, I totally used a picture of that rock art, and I said, I know we're supposed to take them current and not use that, but it was so cool and so appropriate, you know, and was able to talk about culture and all that. But, yeah, so I'll send you my registration so you can see.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I have been out of the office so much that today when I go back, for the rest of the weekend, is just where I'm going to reach out to teachers again, because there's a lot of people when I first ask for interest that haven't registered. So I think, I don't know how much you want, or if there's a cap or a limit on the amount of teachers.
Well, I do like
money. I mean, you can do
I still get like the.
I mean, I think there's a point where it's like,
right. And I just think some of these elementary teams, and we actually have someone now who's new at our district who is over elementary social studies, Amy Minor. I don't know if you know her, but I need to get her on this list to possibly invite to these classes. But I don't think she's done anything, but she'll be there at the training as well. You know,
yeah, and this is a guinea pig. This is the first one. We're going to look at some of the elementary lessons that we've created, and we're going to give them time to think about big, larger connections and what the resources are. And we're going to have the giant map, and we're going to try to
you are?
Yeah, we're going to try to do it.
That was so cool when they were doing that, and I I got to sit out there for a few minutes, and these were ninth graders, and they were really engaged, and she was doing like population distribution and how it's changed over time, but physically putting cones, on the cities and then adding stuff. It was actually, anyway, the kids seemed really engaged, and they all have their shoes on. Yeah, those thoughts are cool.
Great.
So, anyway, I think that discussion will be better if we want to make that classroom, to have science teachers.
I agree. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, let's come back, folks. So, thank you. Great. Thank you very much. All right, insights. Just first blush. What's your comments about the existing standards? Anything you wanted to make sure we note?
We talked in third grade, and as we looked, we found several bridges that exist that would be wonderful to bridge over to science.
Great. So you saw some. Cool.
They're looking good. One thing we did find and I was third grade, is we would have liked to have maybe seen in standard 3 something about economics, just something about economics.
Which raises a great point. I mean, one of the things that the governor's really talked about is wanting to have much more of a focus on economic skills and understanding economics in general. So thank you for that. Would you, just your general sense of the third grade standards, what do you think in terms of, somebody said, we're going to revise, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I didn't feel that way at all. I thought they were very good.
Okay.
I don't think I've seen a third grader for many years.
Yeah, right. But third grades are capable,
My youngest daughter's 30. So, but I thought these were very, very good.
Okay. Great.
I felt good about K2. There were a few things I would rather push down.
Will you turn your talk button on just so we've got you?
But I mean, we discussed the fact that the verbs in them are hard to deal with, but I think teachers would like to be able to interpret themselves what that standard, how that standard is measured in their classroom, rather than us saying make a list or create a PowerPoint show or something like that, which is the other option.
Yeah.
There were a few things I would say let's push down. Kids are more capable, ready to do this and this and this.
And there's some vocabulary that needs to be changed, we discovered.
Yeah, things are 10 years outdated. Kids don't buy MP3 players anymore.
Right, yeah, right. What is an MP3 anyway? Yeah, right, okay. Okay, yeah, good. I mean, so there may be, so from your estimation, you could see some minor adjustments,
tweaks,
but not
nothing major.
Okay. All right, so that's K2. Here's third. Any other comments from fourth? Fourth, what do you guys want to add?
Fourth grade, standard 1 fits very nicely with, it's on the geography, would fit very nicely with probably some of the science standards. I agree that with Corey, as far as I think I would like to see it more inquiry-based a little bit than just very DOK1 for the teachers, and how, and I know this would take more, but how do the, I know in our district they have a new literacy program. It's maybe 3 years old, and Corey was talking about in their district, Scott, sorry, how they were looking at ghost towns and in the literacy part, and it was in California. And then he was able to quickly find, some ghost towns here in Utah, which was more engaging for the kids. And then maybe compare and contrast, why did one revive and one didn't? So how can we, get more of that into the classroom?
I've found working with elementary teachers more recently, which I'm not in the elementary world at all, but more recently I've been in the elementary world. And a lot of times the elementary teachers are not like secondary teachers, and the secondary teacher wants a big, broad, general thing so they can really dive into it and dig it to themselves. Elementary teachers a lot of times want more specifics. They want to know the details and how am I going to do this. And so in standards, kind of like describe the role of producers and consumers. Well, that's a massive thing. What does that look like for fourth graders? What does that look like to get them into a much more digestible form for a fourth grade kid?
Kind of a concrete way, which kind of could get at the issue where secondary, if somebody's teaching history, they probably have much more history coursework than an elementary teacher who we can't expect to have all of
very
that.
little social studies background, most of them, or a lot of them.
Okay. Generally, looking at this at the fourth grade standards, if somebody said, all right, should we revise them or not? Or, I mean, are you looking at a 5% change, a 20% change, throw the whole thing out? What's the
Not throw the whole thing out.
I don't think so.
No.
And I think the content and the topics are great, but kind of going along with kindergartners, rephrasing them, making them a little more clear, or adding in those pieces of okay, now if you have this, what can you do with it? Not just here's my checklist that I made a chart, check, I'm done.
Yeah, we took this map and made this route, and now we're done.
Okay, awesome. All right, thank you.
Robert, I have one more question for you. It seems that the state office is bending over backwards to not give curriculum to teachers. So is that a problem if we start saying, here's a standard and here's curriculum that would meet that, or examples or anything like that?
I think that what I would say is we would support the local districts in terms of collaborating on projects that would share curriculum, and that I wouldn't have a problem with districts kind of leading out on that and trying to figure out ways to support that. Okay? All right, fifth, Pam?
I really like the fifth grade standards. I think there are several of the objectives, the standards and objectives, that teachers will never teach because they don't have any resources, they don't have time to search for them. I think assessing the free market system in the United States serves as an engine of change and innovation. I think teachers will look at that and go, I don't know, where do I go to get it? I think we need to give them stuff to help them do it, make it simple, and give them more e.g.
Now, you raise a great point. Let me just tell you this. I got an email from a high school saying, hey, we came together as a PLC and we're trying to look at Standard 1.1 in U.S. History 2. In Standard 1.1 in U.S. History 2, the new standards talk. So my first question is, why are you in February talking about Standard 1.1, right? Hopefully it means they're planning for next year. I'm sure that's what it means, right? The standard for 1.1 is talking about how students will assess the transformation of life in America because of the technological and industrial changes. And they were like, well, we know, I mean, we can teach about the Transcontinental Railroad. We've decided to do that, but we're kind of stuck on can you give us some other ideas of science or industry? Now, this is a very strong high school asking that question. I mean, think about the difference for life between 1870 and 1920. When you think about how your life in 1870 is going to be the clip-clop of horses, and 1920, it's jazz music on the radio, planes, trains, and automobiles. Within that little 50-year blip in human history. So I responded with, there are lots of possibilities, but it raised the issue for me that not only is this an issue in elementary, but also in secondary, in terms of just step back for a moment and think about this. I mean, one primary source you could use with kids would be the 1880 Sears Roebuck catalog. I mean, my gosh, just look at that, and suddenly you've got this rampant consumerism in America. Victorian era was not one picture on the wall, but let's put 30 on the wall. I mean, what was that about? And what the change that occurred in America in terms of just the mass quantity of stuff that was available because of, for example, the railroad. And you could buy a house from Sears. You could order a house, right? And then everything to go in it. And now we've got Sears going out of business, right? I mean, those are the lessons that can be taught just within that are, I think, incredible, but clearly we have got to do a better job of helping teachers connect the dots. If I'm getting that email from a PLC. So I don't think it's just an elementary issue in terms of helping develop that. I would love ideas about how to support that. We've got the Google Doc that we create with vast resources, but I don't know how often that's accessed. You know, I don't know if people are aware of it. I mean, that's where I really count on you to kind of make sure people know, hey, but if we need to create and work together to create more opportunities for professional learning or materials for teachers, then let's do that. Okay. The other email I got was from a student complaining that they weren't learning about colonialism, the colonial era, or the Civil War in U.S. history too.
Great for them to be proactive.
And it was great. I thanked him for the letter, and then I went off on a nice page-long response to him explaining how we want you to learn about not just the Revolutionary era, but how it's manifest in the 1880s and in the 1920s and in the Reagan's New Federalism. And you're never going to get to that if you're constantly recycling what you learned in 8th grade. So that's our story. We're sticking to it. 6th grade.
Desi and I thought it looked good the way it is. It probably needs a bit of tweaking here and there. Agree with everything that's been said about resources and help for teachers with that. For example, the second objective is evaluate how religion has played a central role in human history from ancient times to today. You know, a university class, basically.
Sure.
So, you know, you look at like one standard or one objective, and you can go deep or not deep. So some of the questions, I think, are how deep do you go and how surface do you go? I think kids are incredibly capable of learning a lot in the elementary years. We focus more of our conversation on the integration piece of social studies, and I think this is prime time to look at the science that's been proposed and start there. But I think we also think that we need to look at social studies and how to crosswalk it with everything else so that in the elementary grades it does get hit upon, you know, and the ELA standards, how do you crosswalk it with, you know, curriculum that way, how do you crosswalk it with the arts, how do you crosswalk it with math, with, you know, financial literacy. So I think if we spend some time maybe crosswalking what's already there, that might help our elementary students have more exposure to social studies.
So the 6th grade ELA, social studies, history, literacy course starts in 6th grade, so this should probably reflect that as well. And then the other thing we talked about too was how is this going to be differentiated from the 10th grade? You know, and back to what Peggy was saying about, you know, how deep, how surface do you go. So.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that clearly maybe some more infographics as well. I'm serious about, like, here's some visual representations of this concept. I mean, Janae Oveson is a methods professor at BYU who talks, and she teaches our elementary methods course online, our online elementary methods course. Now, our online courses, folks, are, and Corey, you know, I'll be talking to you about Utah history, for example. We're probably going to need another section of Utah history. We've got, and Amber's teaching a U.S. History 2 course for us right now. We have, in some cases, 60 people on the waiting list for the online courses that we offer. The methods courses that Axel teaches, and because people want that, they want that content, and the online, so that online resource could be another way to, you know, create some of these opportunities for teachers. But yeah, infographics. We'll make some pictures. Okay, well, I don't know what the future holds. Obviously, in terms of the revision of the standards, it will be not my call in terms of what is asked. So stay tuned, and I'll expect your voices at the table in terms of the best process for that. Okay? But thanks for looking at them. I would love any comments you've made, that you've written, get them back to me. In terms of, if you're interested at all in trying to do some of the crosswalk work around elementary science, even though they've not yet been approved, especially when they are approved, it'd be a nice, I think, moment to say, hey, there are new science standards, and here's all the ways that it connects to social studies. Because the whole point of reason why I brought up the online courses is Janae Oveson, who teaches the methods class, teaches about a book called Every Book is a Social Studies Book. And it just shows how you can take this Dr. Seuss book on the Sneetches and talk about difference. And because some Sneetches have stars and some don't. And there are economics lessons about supply and demand in that little storybook. And there are lessons about stereotyping, and I mean, you name it, all in just Dr. Seuss, right? And that text of Every Book is a Social Studies book is just one example of helping kind of teachers think about how do you connect the dots, which is what we're all about, okay? So speaking of connecting the dots, we have with us some guests in this corner who are going to talk about some of the work they're doing regarding the Transcontinental Railroad and it more generally kind of the rich folk life that we have in the States. So I will turn it over to Mr. Clive Romney, the inimitable Clive Romney, because when you see that hat, you know Clive is on his way. So if you'll press the little button in front of you, Clive, the sound will turn on. And then if you'll introduce your compatriots or have them introduce themselves, and you can talk a little bit about what you're up to.
Thank you. First of all, I need to know how much time we have.
How much time you need?
We would love it if you could give us 15 minutes, but...
All right, it's a deal.
That will include questions and answers.
Great.
So,
Awesome.
All right, I am starting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Clive Romney. This is Lisa Badger, Public Relations. This is Bob Morphus, Marketing and Communications. We're with Utah Pioneer Heritage Arts. It's a 501c3 nonprofit, Utah-based, totally independent, totally crazy, very small, mobile, and passionate. And we're passionate about Utah stories. We tell Utah stories through all of the arts. And we have been captivated by the story of the Transcontinental Railroad, the intersection of Utah history and American history like it never had been previous and maybe never will again. We are producing, thank you, a 9x12, 64-page full-color, 20-story hardbound book with accompanying 20-song, double-length CD, but we're managing to cram all 20 songs onto a 79-minute and 43-second CD. Audio album targeting 4th and 5th, 7th and 8th. That's Utah history and American history. And again, it's the intersection of those two. With online resources, all using the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad as a model to stimulate discussion and activities about technology, its benefits and its unintended consequences, innovation and standardization, ethics and business, immigration and socialization, planning and project management, collaboration, economics, it goes on and on. But it's just a model for what we're dealing with all day, every day nowadays. The songs, the 20 songs, and we've gotten many different Utah songwriters, all professionals, involved in this, so it's got a great variety. And I've left a CD with Robert. I've left a CD with Pam Sua because she and I have a history. And I've got 2 more CDs going to the highest bidder because we're still looking for funding for that to finish this project. Anyway, Robert, you're welcome to share those songs. And I assume, Robert, that you have email addresses for all of these people.
I do.
I will email to you.
Very well aware that I have their email addresses. So.
I will email to Robert links, Dropbox links, for all of the latest demos and the text materials, and I've got. Tell you what, we'll let you pass these around. And Robert, you can have a copy up there if you want to pass them around. Okay, great. The opposite direction. So we'll keep you advised of the project. The book Anyway, the songs use arts integration to make the topics memorable, enjoyable, repeatable, which for learning is essential. That they like it enough that they'll want to hear it again. And the songs, even though they're very educational, are extremely entertaining. And you'll hear that in them. And ultimately, inspirational. Now, the book is case-bound. It's being printed by Paragon Printing, the premier book printing company in Utah. It'll be excellent product, a durable, enduring product that will enable you to use these materials for years to come in the future. It will be out the last week of April. The cost is $30. $29.95. Yeah, $29.95. Save 5 cents.
Yeah. For a second. Yeah, one of the things that you're looking at going around and are facsimiles of the pages. The reason that we want you to see how the stories flow from one story to the next. Sam Payne, a master storyteller, and his wife, Suzanne Christensen, have taken the people who are in this fabric of stories before, during, and after the actual driving of the Golden Spike, and we've zeroed in on those folks because, to be blunt, that's where the meat is when you start talking about why did you do this, why didn't you do that, how did this turn out, what were you up against. I mean, all these different aspects of what went into the Transcontinental Railroad. The facsimile that's going around is the book so far. I think we have about a third of the book ready at this point, and we're just moving ahead as money will allow. And at any rate, that's all I got right now.
Okay. There's a lot of sweat equity going into it because we're underfunded at this point. We're a struggling nonprofit, but we're passionate about this, and we will see it through. So if I have to mortgage my house, we will see this through because I love this project. Let me just tell you a little bit about some of the 20 stories. This stupendous project, Hartwell Carver, a doctor in, I think it was Ohio, and he sees in 1930, when the Tom Thumb was the only locomotive in existence in America, he sees the potential. And he starts saying, there's got to be a transcontinental railroad. Well, Asa Whitney was the first one to bring a proposal to Congress, but Hartwell Carver was the father of the Transcontinental Railroad. Vision. And I didn't write that down as one of the things that this talks about, but it's vision. Okay, then Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, before he was that, he was the head of the Army Corps of Engineers. He was the one in charge of all of the surveys of the 4 transcontinental rail routes, and then the one California north to south route that they surveyed. And then his wife, Anna. Nobody thinks about the women who were involved in the Transcontinental Railroad. Anna was a key figure. She was a partner with Theodore Judah. And between the two of them, they were the ones who hiked many times on foot the Donner Pass route. And, you know, Theodore was in his civil engineering mind. He was envisioning the route. Well, Anna was picking flowers and plants and pressing the leaves in books and painting watercolors to get to the hearts of the congressmen. She knew that watercolors of Donner Pass would impress them with the beauty of the route and would sway them much more than logical arguments were. So, and then money to be made, that's all about the heroes and villains who emerged in that. You know, Thomas Durant was a scoundrel. How else do you describe him? But he says, somebody gonna make a lot of money on this thing, might as well be me. Well, it was. He siphoned off so much money that at the end of the construction period, Union Pacific was bankrupt. And Thomas Durant and Credit Mobilier were millionaires. Anyway, Open Up the Throttle is all about the Pacific Railroad Act. And did you know that Abraham Lincoln was the foremost railroad lawyer in the country when he was elected? He had already argued many Well, some of you are nodding in your heads. I'm telling you what you already know. Did you know that around the Horn, 147 locomotives were shipped around the Horn before the Transcontinental Railroad was connected? 147! And all of the rails and the spikes and the materials to go with them. Anyway, I could go on. Questions?
Will you let us know when this is ready to come out?
Absolutely. Yes, I'll let Robert know and he'll share
Will
it.
we purchase from Paragon or will we purchase from you?
You will purchase it from us. At this point, it's self-published. But we have a shipper, a supplier, so, we have a fulfillment office, as they call it.
And the CDs, you will have more of those later? Can we copy these?
You may. You have permission. Yeah. Those are not finished mixes. When we get the finished mixes, then we say, sorry, you can't copy those. And we're starting to mix next week.
Will the CD come out with the book? Or
Yes. The CD will be in a clear plastic sleeve inside the front cover of the book.
There will also be a digital download.
Yeah. Lisa?
Yeah, one of the places where people, if you look at the bottom of this sheet, there are different ways here that we've identified of how educators can help. If any of you are eager and passionate to get involved with this, that would be it gives you a bunch of ideas. But one thing that we're trying to do, we want to find corporate sponsors. So far, we have $33,000 in funding. This is a $115,000 project. If you have any ideas of who you can think of that's passionate about education, arts, railroads, innovation, whatever it happens to be, if you can funnel ideas to us so we can contact those people, that would be really helpful. What we're trying to do is get this to be funded entirely by corporations so that every teacher in the state of Utah would have access to this information online for free. We also are trying to see if we can get sponsors who would be willing to purchase books, to get 2 books in every elementary school and middle school library, things like that. So any input you have to help us in that process, we would really appreciate.
That's great.
So if we go to hammersandstripes.com now, what will we see? Right now, you'll see this that's pulled up, and you'll see that we have a page that within a week at the top is supposed to have, over to the far right, we have another button added after Learn that says pre-order here. So people essentially are being like angel investors, of saying we'll put our $30 down now to help so that the book can be printed. As long as we get 3,000 copies of the book printed, we'll be able to get this out to everybody and break even and be able to move forward, getting resources to people.
So this is not just a timeshare conversation, okay? We're not trying to sell you on this, except we are. But we also, I just want you to know about Clive and Bob's and Lisa's, their track record in terms of the kinds of work they do. And the important work, when you think about things like the important role of storytelling, there's nothing more central to social studies than story. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about Tinker versus Des Moines as a Supreme Court case, but to know that there's actually a woman named Mary Beth Tinker, they just celebrated the 50th anniversary of that Supreme Court case, that it's a real person. There really was a Fred Korematsu. There really are real live people building this railroad. Sometimes those names get lost in history, but the stories and the work that you're all doing to bring that to life is what inspires kids and what's interesting to them. So not just this specific work, but just generally the kinds of things that you guys have been doing for a long time is very impressive. And I want schools and social studies folks to know about that. So thank you.
I want to inject something, and that is that the thing that initially turned me from, okay, this is another project, to, oh my gosh, I can't wait, was when Clive said, Drill Ye Terriers Drill is a well-known folk song, but did you know that there were thousands of Chinese terriers doing the same thing for the other side, and that they were, well, anyway, Clive thought, what if we took that 5-tone song and melted it with a Chinese 5-tone song and blended the two songs together, which only this crazy guy can do. And all of a sudden you have a European Chinese version of Drill Ye Terriers Drill, and the empathy that now you have for both sides and these cultural differences.
And we probably need your input on now, would you prefer to hear a song or a brief medley of songs that's, I think, 4 to 5 minutes long? We have 2 minutes left, or would you prefer to ask us questions? Where do you want to head?
Okay. So I've pulled it up here on mine. I don't know how loud it can get, but I can do, if that's, you can see it on the screen. Am I click on the right one?
Is it the medley or the Drill Ye Terriers?
This is Drill Ye Terriers demo track.
That's great.
Is that all right?
Yep. Yeah, that'll do.
That's a Don
Oh, every morn at 7 o'clock, there are 20 terriers on the rock. The boss comes along and he says, be still, put all your power in the east to drill, and drill ye terriers drill. Drill ye terriers drill. Oh, it's work all day, no sugar in your tea when you work beyond on the railway, and drill ye terriers drill, and blast and fire. Cocker's pets, they say.
This is now sung by a Chinese.
But the pets have no home. Isolated we stay. So we take care of our own, giving even our lives in trade for hope of a better life, a place of good fortune and peace. Work all day, boil water for our tea, sustenance from the land and sea. We terriers drill and blast and fire. He's a flaming man. Last week a premature blast went off. A mile in the air went Big Jim Goff. Oh, drill ye terriers drill. When payday next it came around, poor Jim's pay $1 short was found. What for, says he, came Dan's reply. You were docked for the time you were up in the sky. Oh, drill ye terriers drill. On the precipice face, through the darkest night, drills and hammers race, unleash the powder's might. We carve up that highway through cold mountain, drill ye terriers done some. Always work all day, no sugar in your tea when you work beyond on the railway. Drill ye terriers drill, and blast, and fire, and drill.
The Chinese vocalist is Dr. Taowen Le from Weber State University. And nobody knew he sang. And he says, oh, I sing all the time. I sing Chinese songs. So,
oh, that's so great.
Yeah, so the vocals, his singing, his interpretation of the song is a little more difficult to understand the lyrics, but it's totally authentic. Worth the effort. Thank you very much for allowing.
Thank you.
And Robert, I just emailed you a medley.
Great.
And so if on a break you want to play that medley, I'll hear many of the songs.
I think that, especially, and I don't think it's just the sole province of elementary school, but I think that the arts are a way in to the heart, which is the way into learning. So this idea about Irish workers and Chinese workers coming and working together and working from opposite ends and sometimes working together is embodied in that song in a way that I think is really powerful.
I've got one more question. So on your website, when this all gets put together, will you have a playlist? Because the CDs, many of the teachers don't do any CDs anymore. But if there's a playlist, they can link to.
Yes, they will be able to access. And what else we're doing is we've had some focus groups with some teachers, 4th, 5th, 7th, 8th grade teachers, and they've told us they don't want more lesson plans. What they want is concrete activities that can help kids learn things easily. So we're coming up with fun things that are like how to, with the math stuff, what if we were to build a track in our classroom from this outlet over to this outlet, and you had blue tape as a supply? Calculate now how much tape you would need and how far apart you would need to put these strips to make it echo what they did on the railroad, and so that they're learning something real that just sinks in their head.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great to see you guys, as always. All right. If we look at our agenda, we're going to look here and talk a little bit about the civics report. Let me give you an update. There's legislation right now at the Capitol for House Bill 140, and House Bill 140 basically takes the reporting requirements for the civics report that you are often responsible for. You'll also see that a lot of times I'll also be asking you, hey, let me know what you're doing in civics, and then there's also the civics report, that this House bill is just conflating both of those into one report. So instead of making two separate reports, one to the Commission on Civic and Character Education and one that I have to provide to the Capitol, it'll just be one that you won't have to do, but that you're going to want to do because I'm going to need it. And if you don't do it, I will shame you by pointing out which district didn't turn these in, okay? So this is I won't shame you, but this is a list of the reports that were submitted to the Commission on Civic and Character Education. And there were a few districts, most turned them in. So, you're certainly welcome. How many of you had a hand in that? I mean, it was like you did it, right? Who here didn't do it? You have no idea who did it at your district, but somebody did it, right? Okay, Pam, I'm assuming you wrote the report for Jordan, right? No, it's great. I mean, I appreciate that you did it.
Robert, did Iron County do anything?
Yeah, I will just check right now. Here we are. Iron County, there's a tiny little report, two sentences, but it was submitted. We can find out for you. I can find out for you. I'll send you the information about who did it. But Judy Hillman is here, and welcome. Judy helped plan and put together the Place for All, the conference that was held last year, the civics conference that was held at Salt Lake Community College. The Commission on Civic and Character Education, the Lieutenant Governor's Commission on Civic and Character Education, has allocated funds for another conference. I'm sure that we could have another conference. So Judy's here because one of the first things we'd like to talk about is when would a one-day civics and character education conference, when would the best date be for that? And we were looking at June 7th, which is a Friday, correct? As one possibility. Most of you are just finished with school a lot of you are finished 2 weeks earlier, but some of you are not finished until like June 5th this year. Yeah, you guys don't get done until the 6th. But my question is, are you then doing PD throughout the rest of that week with teachers?
We have PD just the 3rd and 4th, so the first 2 days.
Okay.
So 7th would be good.
I think our students should still be in school, but I think that's one district that I know. The idea was to capture people who really disappear. Yeah.
I mean, we can tell you that last year we had a lot of attrition. We had a lot of people sign up for the conference and they didn't come, even though they got paid $100 to go. So we had way more registration than we could even hold, and so we didn't even really push it towards those last few weeks, and then people just didn't come. Yeah.
I think one thing we can do is, the week before, send everyone an email reminder, remind them where and when, and that they're getting $100. You did?
Got it.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we can do that, but you're right, you know. But we just think that probably earlier in June is better than later in June. Is that your sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, June 7th might be an issue for you, Desi. Is that right, in Salt Lake District, do you think? Or
We're out.
you should be out. So
I can put it out.
yeah. Okay. All right. So we're tentatively looking at June 7th. Okay. We'd also like to think about a team of people helping plan it that would get a stipend to help plan it. So it'd be, Pam, when you think about, or Corey, when you think about the folks who come to UCSS and help plan the UCSS conference, some of those people, or even some of you, would work with Judy to try to capture the best ideas and the best sessions for that day. So is anybody here who just immediately is like, oh, I could help with that. It might be interesting, and it's there's some pocket change, walking around money.
I can do that, but I don't feel like I know very many people. I'm out in the sticks, and I don't know a lot of people.
Okay, well, so Elaine and Corey and Peter are definitely at least interested in the idea. And Amber.
I can do whatever you want. I don't know people either, but I can email people.
Yeah, so here's some of the things we're thinking about. One, and Judy, feel free to chime in at any point with some of the ideas we talked about. We're trying to think about the kinds of ways that we can connect teachers with academia, for one. So what are some of the ways that, like, for example, Mackenzie Skiles, who I was talking about, the geography teacher and her work, that is a real there's a real action civics component to having kids propose solutions to the issue of water in Utah. Or what's the action civics response to vandalism of archaeological sites? So there may be a way for an archaeologist to be invited, and also for people to think about what are some lessons you would create tied into that. What's the civic or character education component? Because honestly, there's character involved there as well. It means doing the right thing is fundamentally the concept of morality, right? We have a morality clause in our standards. It talks about being moral people. It doesn't have anything to do with religion necessarily. It certainly can, but it's about doing the right thing. And that's part of what we do in social studies. So the civics and character education idea would be that we would have some keynotes. We think Jeff Noakes is a keynote-worthy presenter, not just with his book coming out and the kinds of work he's doing around consensus building. Very often we look to like national people. He is a national person. He is going to be a national person. You know?
He's already, like, I have 2 social studies days on the 3rd and the 4th, and he is going to do a workshop for our district. Like 2-hour workshops, what he did at NCSS. So.
I mean, that consensus work that he's doing is groundbreaking and needs to be celebrated. Now, he presented a different thing to us at the last social studies meeting, but I really believe his classroom consensus work is a session he did at NCSS that I think is worthy of study and worthy of work. So I would encourage Elaine, if you've got any possibility to kind of invite at least social studies leaders if they, I mean, just think about it. I mean, if you've got room, because it would be good for you to see the possibilities for your own district about what Jeff is doing, I believe.
We also have, like, I've invited Susie Cox from UVU, and she's going to do a workshop on PBL. And
Great.
We have the National Geographic guy who's also going to do a workshop on that same day.
So that's Chris Hines. So PBL, project-based learning, is the idea. So that's one piece. Judy, do you want to talk about the guy that you said is doing the Karchner? Is that his name?
Colin Karchner, he's become kind of a friend because he gave a TED Talk at Salt Lake talk, and it's excellent. He and his wife have this kind of campaign to set some limits on cell phone use, social media. But it ends up being a really incisive commentary about sort of, fake news and real news and being engaged in social media. And it's sort of, if you're not going to bring out Peter Adams again, then this could be a really interesting angle on news literacy. And I totally agree. He just spoke in our district last night, which I didn't go to, but he's also speaking at another school on March 14th, which I'm going to try and go to. But he was going to be one of the keynotes. We also are looking at, his name just left me. He does the Underground Operation Railroad, Tim Ballard. And he has students our teachers have his kids in their classroom. And so we're trying to get him also the keynote for our days.
You might end up with my wife. My wife just spoke at the PD conference. Last week.
They just have a personal relationship with him, and he still might be hard, but he might also be a good candidate for any of that. We also talked about maybe wanting to see what happens when we pay teachers a little bit more, maybe they get 150, and instead of bringing out 4 people from other states, maybe bringing out 1 or 2, because we have great local expertise. Yes, we talked about Diana
Hess.
And what she does on sort of teaching controversial topics might go really nicely with what Jeff Noakes does on fashion consensus. So it's just kind of, and then there's another track that we're thinking about doing a little bit more on character, but out of character development. But obviously Colin Karchner fits right there. Did you say the word how to do people out?
Well, we might think about doing something separately with Peter Adams, so, and News Literacy Project, just as a separate PD or something. Yeah.
This is going in the direction I was going to mention, because I was going to ask to be a feedback on last year's media literacy, which I think was just absolutely vital.
Yeah.
And then to add to that, I think the topic, which would be a slight variation of it, and I've been actually asked about this by several teachers with whom I've shared some of the things I used to do, and that is the nature of and how to deal with propaganda explicitly. That was not explicitly addressed last year. Jason Stanley at Yale has a new book on it. It's remarkable. And that's a variation of that I think would be absolutely critical today.
Okay.
What is propaganda? How does one teach about it? How does one do this? I used to do very simple stuff on it, but I found out that some teachers that I knew were not doing anything with it. And they were surprised that there were simple ways of identifying different types of propaganda and how to combat them.
That's great.
Adams Sessions list blew the roof. The most popular of all, and in the comments, almost everybody asked for more.
Well, I think that's worth looking at because he has such an important message.
Yep. Kind of germane to that is Sam Weinberg, who is doing a lot of work around helping students navigate through social media and websites and things like that. And he's coming February 28th to BYU. 28th. Yep. Yes, same day as the... I know, right? So he's doing a thing at 11, but he's doing something later that day. So we'll... Yes, so we're going to send the word out, because I asked Jeff Noakes about whether the room could accommodate a lot of people, and it can, and I would encourage you to think about recommending teachers to go hear Sam Weinberg speak. He's a very compelling speaker, and he's doing really important work around historical literacy. And he's kind of a mentor to Jeff in a lot of ways. So the Civics conference, if teachers were paid $150 to go,
they'll be there better than, or do you need to go up to 200? What makes a difference?
yeah. I think is 150 going to get him there? Well, we thought 100 was going to get him there, right?
100 got me there easily.
I mean, the thing is that nobody in any other profession goes and does professional learning for free. If they're a lawyer, they're going to bill either their partner for the hours, or they're going to be in Hawaii getting the training, but, and so that was part of our rationale for, we need people out there learning this stuff and then making use of it, and that's the rationale for the stipend. This is, and then we really want to think about celebrating as many local people, and that's the other piece that we're looking at. The other piece of helping kind of coordinate and working with Judy and getting a stipend to do that is to be looking at the civics reports. We want to try to identify and celebrate 2 or 3 to start with outstanding programs, or outstanding initiatives, or something that somebody's doing. Thank you. And then doing, having some kind of awards that day, and gives some money.
Like the school or the district or the teacher?
Well, you tell me what.
I think the We the People program is a good focus for schools. I mean, if they could see a demonstration of a middle school and of a high school, and let them hear the kids talk and have judges ask them questions, it's kind of a demo.
I think you're right. I mean, I think a session like that where the kids come and, 8th grade kids talking about the 14th Amendment is a pretty cool thing. It's very brief.
Prize winner, brother one. Yeah. For you to do a demo.
Yeah.
Those are the kids that win.
Yeah, amazing.
Just a second.
So I'm judging the high school tomorrow. Is it middle school? Did the middle school already?
Yeah, our Oak Canyon is the only school that does We the People, and I think they took first last year, but they were second this year. So excellent.
And when was it?
It was just last week.
Yeah, I was out of town. I couldn't judge. The high school's tomorrow, so I'm going to judge high school tomorrow. But okay, so that's an idea. We want to try to think about how do we celebrate. Like this, in this case, this is Helper Middle School is helping plant native vegetation along the river. So, Neil, I don't know if you know about any of the work that Helper did regarding nature planting, but even stuff like that is...
Helper's outstanding on
and so that might be I'm sorry, what?
Oh, yeah. Your page lifts up, so I can see pictures. They would submit pictures.
Oh yeah, they submitted pictures. See, look, that's the first page of the report. Our photographs that got submitted.
I didn't submit any pictures.
I know, right? But this is like, maybe we give an award for people who send pictures. What?
From our district that I thought was super cool is one of our junior highs is our Title I junior high. We only have one. And Warren Junior, and they have students that team with the police officers and firefighters, and they babysit every week for them too, so they can go out. I found that out, and I'm just like, that's the coolest thing ever. So kids are looking at some civics kind of thing. You're thinking of things noteworthy. Anyway, when I inquired, I found out, wow, they're doing pretty cool stuff.
Robert, I want to say one more thing about getting people there.
Yeah.
If you encourage teams of teachers to apply as a school with an administrator and carpool up, I think you're going to get better participation. People who hesitate to come when they're by themselves, but if they're going with a partner or a colleague or a team, I think you're going to get a better overall attendance. So maybe give them I guess there's no incentive.
Well, we did think about this. We thought about if we bring in somebody who's got a book, we were thinking about the first 50 first 50 people who register get a book, or the first 50 teams could get a copy of the text. I don't know. There's things like that. So.
And lunch with Jeff Noakes.
And you get lunch with Jeff Noakes. Right. You know. Yeah. And I don't know when Jeff's book comes out. I mean, I don't know where he is with that. So yeah, I don't think it's. I mean, I know it's on its way, but I don't know when. But that's the idea. So June 7th is the tentative date. It's very tentative because we have to check a lot of things, but that would be the one piece. And then, you know, in terms of other possibilities, there might be a possibility to do some PD with, and just see if we couldn't bring out Peter Adams on it for a separate thing. So if you're with that, it seems like that would be something of interest. So I mean, I think I can find money to do that.
We also talked about bringing out Andrew Wilkes from the Generation Citizen. And I know that the Generation Citizen has some groups and stuff in your district. Is there anything there that you think might be worth featuring?
I don't. We've got 4 teachers that are working for piloting it in our district right now, so they just started it this semester, so I'm sure there will be. I'm sure there will be. And they have, well, actually, I was going to say they have an intern here right now, but he's going to be gone. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to meet with Nate on Friday, so. Awesome. Okay, so what, you guys have your agendas in front of you? Because I don't, so what else is on there?
There's lots.
All right, let's get. Okay, so, yes, you want to talk about that a little bit? The giant map?
Oh, do I want to talk about that?
Just say.
I saw, I got to see it last Friday.
Where was it?
It was at Oak Canyon Junior High. And the person, like, they started this in Colorado, right? And so somebody was there doing a lesson with the students. They were actually doing population distributions and stuff. And the kids, there were cones, and the kids were sitting all around the map, and they had to get up and place things in different places, and how populations have changed over time. That's what they were doing with the map on that day. But it was pretty interactive with the kids as far as thinking and talking and moving.
How did you get it to come to the school?
I didn't. Doug Anderson.
So, yeah, so Doug had a friend who's a colleague in Colorado. She used some of her money to buy a Utah map.
Yeah.
Okay. Then she brought it to Utah, and she taught lessons about things like gerrymandering, and you can do things with both elementary and high school kids. Population distribution was all about using different cones to show over time how people have changed. He's got, Doug just sent me a couple emails about the giant maps. So Utah's on the move. This was he's just pulling it up here, to look at major cities over 3 different historical periods, all right? There are a lot of things you can do. It seems gimmicky at first, but it's not necessarily, you can do some complicated things with a big map, okay? If you just look, like if you have your computer and you just like type in giant maps, National Geographic, it'll probably, while I try to figure out how to display this for you, I can show you.
We're going to buy some.
Yeah, so we've ordered 7. Just randomly, because they're like $700 a piece, okay?
So what will be the process of checking them out?
Well, that's why I brought it up on the agenda. So So what I was thinking was that I would have districts say, if you give us a map, here's our plan. And we will just look at people who submit a plan for, here's how we would make it workable to make it happen. I talked to Doug Anderson about then the need for some kind of professional development, that there would be a lead person or 2 from your district that would then come to a training on how to best use them. So that's, as far as I've thought this through, that's it. So I'm happy to kind of have you think about what would make it work.
So Doug had me send out to all our teachers, and he did an open house, and I sent it to 4th grade teachers, and then, all the rest of the teachers. So I'm also, on the second day of our PD days, we're having an exhibition of different cool things teachers are doing around the district, but we will also have the map set up then, hopefully.
And it's set up on the floor.
It's set up on the floor. The kids all have their socks on, like they didn't use their shoes to wear. But I think to kind of get the excitement about it, it was just having some sort of open house, or like when we have all the social studies teachers together, having it so they can see it, and then someone, like what Robert was saying, somebody could be there to talk about the different ways you could use it, and then maybe having some sort of training. Yeah.
When do you think you'll get the 7 maps, Robert?
I don't think it'll take very long to get them. I don't.
Well, I mean, through the rural areas, I mean, they wouldn't need the house, they would only want it for like a week.
Yeah.
And they can cover all the 4th grade and all the 7th grade.
Yeah.
So here's a visual of, I mean, this is how big they are, okay?
But for all of southeastern Utah, 4 counties, we have the service center, the SESC, that could probably store that and distribute it effectively.
Oh, and check it out, and just like,
And just check it out from the SESC.
be like, we need it for 2 weeks.
Yeah. And that would be a good way to distribute it there.
Yeah.
The other thing.
Neil, I'm sorry to interrupt you for just a second. I want to thank Judy for being here. Did you get what you needed? Do you feel like we've got a sense of what we?
I'll be in touch with those of you who volunteer.
Cool. All right. Sorry, Neil. Thanks.
And then, one thing I think you could do with that out of the SESC, when will these be available?
But I don't know how long it'll take to get them here, but I can't imagine, we could, I don't want to, I'm going to underpromise and overdeliver. I don't know.
Well, in July, the Utah Rural Schools Conference is going to be at USU Eastern in Price.
Oh, really? That's a change.
It's a big change.
Yeah.
They did a survey of who was coming to rural schools, and they found out Carbon and Emory County led, and Sevier and Sanpete counties were second, and they asked, where are we having it in Cedar City?
Yeah.
So it's good, this year it'll be in Price, next year in Richmond. That's through the 12th of July.
It'd be a different story if it were like in February, but it's not. So why not? Yeah, sure.
So that would be a wonderful venue to set this up and let people see it.
Do you know what we could even do, Robert, is we could train somebody from UCSS to do something with this map, and then they could take it down to rural schools and present at the thing, and then maybe during the school year, we could sponsor them to go down and take it around.
Right. Sure. No, I think there are lots of cool ways, and I also think that this is a cool opportunity to think about building the capacity for more teacher leaders in your district. I mean, if you've got a teacher who you know those teachers who would be really good presenters, and they'd be really good at facilitating the use of this map. I think. Anyway, that's the ideas. We'll start with 7. If we need more, we'll get more. But I love the idea of regional service centers. I think that is certainly one, and we need to do a better job anyway of trying to figure out how to work better with the regional service centers. So what I can say is look for a request to, like, what's your plan? What would your proposal be if you were to receive one? Does that make sense in terms of starting there with that? And then if you're going to get one, but you're only going to get one if you commit to sending, and I think you've got to send a team of people, because this is what happened is National Geographic originally had asked me to send 2 people from the state to learn about the giant maps. So we did, but one person at the last minute got sick, so she couldn't go. So the other person went. I don't know who that was. I've asked Chris to tell me, and he doesn't know. I mean, trying to dig back a couple years ago to when that was. So there's that money expended on sending somebody to learn how to be the lead, and they weren't.
Doug Anderson would be available to provide a PD day?
So Doug, I talked to Doug yesterday about it. He said that now that he watched, he thinks that he could probably pull some things together to do some kind of professional learning. I think that there may be other teachers who have been trained. I mean, we could put a call out and see who's got some expertise with it.
We probably need to differentiate between elementary and secondary because you do it very differently than fourth graders.
Right.
It'd be nice to have a representative, a fourth grade person, an elementary person, and a secondary person from at least one from every district, to maybe get some training.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're very interested. So.
Cool. Okay, great. All right, so we'll look at that for sure. Okay. So I'm just going to move quickly through everything else. The geography updates, we're going to have there's a geography group that will meet this afternoon in our annual, not an annual, but to look at the kind of plan for next year. I feel like we've made some headway. I don't feel like we've done as much as we could as, in the state regarding the geography education. I know that, Desi, you've done some work. I know, did you do some work with Chris in terms of?
We had to.
Yeah, but I'm curious about how you feel about where we are.
I feel like my teachers are overwhelmed with everything, and I don't know that many of them will use what they've got. Some of them will. When I did, so we had the day of training, and then I gave another day, a work day, for teams to come in and work on what Chris had taught them. And I had probably a third of my teachers there.
Okay.
Came to the first day.
So there's quite a bit of attrition. Okay, Desi, are you seeing that issue as well in terms of the attrition kind of drop off from what initially has happened with that work?
I think it depends on the teacher and the situation in the school. The same reason that Pam said. I mean, some teachers have the background to just take it and run with it, and others it's a new thing, so it'll take some time to kind of get them.
Okay.
We've brought in teams of science teachers and geography teachers. And of the schools that sent both, I only had a couple of schools who came to the work day and they worked together as a cross-curricular team.
Okay. Well, we're going to meet this afternoon to kind of talk about an action plan. And I guess the question for all of you is there's an endowment of funds for professional development or other resources developed to support geography education in Utah. And it's anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000 a year that can be allocated towards that work. And it's an endowment that Chris Hines with National Geographic has pulled an advisory council of people, including some people here. And what we need is to make sure that we're meeting the needs of people who are out there who are teaching geography, whether it's in a geography class, world geography, or just in third grade, because there's a lot of geography in third grade. So my question to you is any feedback you have or any direction. I mean, we have kind of a draft action plan that we're going to be looking at this afternoon. So any comments you have for us, please.
Could we use part of that endowment to pay for the traveling giant maps down to the schools and down there?
You're on the advisory council, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would bring that up this afternoon. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe even to provide some of the, maybe creating lesson plans to go with the map for fourth grade and seventh grade, and or some of that professional learning for people from districts to maybe get trained so they can then train people in their district.
Lesson plan where you see, here's the dust on the Great Salt Lake, and now here it is on the mountains, and here's there are some cool things. The other thing that I'm excited about is the possibilities for, have you guys seen the interactive topographic maps that you can make where there's a laser printer or lasers hovering over like sand, and you mix the sand up and the topography immediately changes the topo maps? It's really cool. There's so much augmented reality and other stuff out there that I bet there could be ways to take some like the graphic, that thing I was showing you from Sean's his Geography Awareness Month, that I bet there will be a point where you could do augmented reality stuff on that giant map. A QR code, the kids are taking their phone over and suddenly they get a little video of Price, or they've got a little video of Moab, making that map come to life. There are some really cool.
Augmented reality.
Right, yeah.
Can I ask a question? I don't know enough about augmented reality, but if you take the map that's already prepared, you can do things to that to make it augmented reality, or do you have to produce an augmented reality map?
No, you know, like this flyer? This flyer just has this stuff embedded on it that my phone, so you would take that big map and you would take a little QR code sticker and you'd stick it over on price, and when the kids, right? I mean, I'm just thinking, you know, I think it'd be...
Can I say something about rural schools since I brought that up?
Please.
It has a huge overemphasis on STEM. Now, we all love STEM. We're not going to say anything negative, certainly there. But they have fewer and fewer people who are willing to do social studies workshops there. And on some years, I've done a workshop there for the last 20 years. And I do them on social studies topics. And some years I'm the only one. And so a big map like this, or even more people willing to come and do social studies workshops, would be a great thing for both rural schools, but also for social studies in the state.
That's great. Yeah. Can you tell me the dates again?
July 10th through the 12th.
Okay.
And who would we contact to do a session?
The Southeastern Utah Service Center, or
so do you have an email for that?
Because that would be a great opportunity for UCSS to present.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly what I
Or
mean.
the other thing is, it's at URSA, Utah Rural Schools Association.
Utah Rural Schools Association.com.
Yeah, I think I'm looking.
I'm looking for it too right now.
This year, because it's in price, it is the Southeastern Utah Service Center that's doing it.
All right, so here's the conference. What call for presenters? This is presenters form, and let's see what the deadline is for
And they're
that.
looking for presenters right now, yes.
Proposals will be accepted through Friday, March 15th.
Yeah.
So I would love it if people present, and if you present and you got an issue with travel or whatever, we'll have to figure that out.
I'm sure we could get a couple of people from the CSS to do excellent sessions and go down if we can help pay for their board and room or their mileage or...
Yeah.
I know we have people that would be happy.
Well, and that's even something that like Naomi and stuff might be interested in, go do some Saturday streaming and stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that'd be excellent.
I don't know whether Naomi, I'm sure I mean, the thing is that you don't want to assume that people know everything,
No.
right? So I will try to remind her, but if you, I mean, do you communicate with her?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have the same problem that they
I'll
have in,
suggest that that's a good idea for better.
we have the same problem that they have in Vernal, and that is it's a one-way road apparently.
Yeah, right? Yeah,
It only heads north for us,
yeah, yeah.
west for you.
Yep. Well, and I think, I mean, the other thing is that the possibilities of doing stuff, and while we're there, I mean, like 9 Mile Canyon stuff could be amazing.
I should say about that, they have trips set up. So I'm taking a busload of people who are the first ones to sign up. I'm taking them out onto the San Rafael swell and taking them different places there, including the Chinese huts. When they tried to build a railroad across Emory County and failed, they made the Chinese build their own homes out of rock there, and they're still there. 1881.
Do you know if Chris Merrett knows that? The archaeologist who was here earlier?
He's got to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, they're incredible to go visit. They have ovens and things like that there. So I'm taking them out on the San Rafael swell. Another man named Lane Miller, who's an expert on 9 Mile Canyon, is taking another bus trip up 9 Mile Canyon. And those kind of things we've really arranged for. Other things, they have a wonderful wave pool in Price, and they're going to have free swimming passes for people to go there. They have an incredible prehistoric museum. I don't know if you've ever been to it, but it's a great prehistoric museum. And they're working to have people be able to go there for free. Carbon and Emory counties are trying to make this a big big deal.
No, it's great. It's great. I'm excited about it. All right, cool. Thanks for plugging it. And I think it's a real opportunity for us to kind of branch out in new ways.
And just to say, Carbon County, Emory County is not so good, but Carbon County is a big participant in history fair. Carbon School District.
Right, yeah, sure.
And they will hold that right there in Carbon County in Price, and I'm willing to bet those teachers who make history fair work there are probably not planning on doing anything. But if we could put a bug in there and encourage them, they could probably have a really nice workshop or display or something about.
Great. That's a great idea. Well, I'm going to come out and judge out a price, so that'll be great.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome.
And I just got permission from my district to go ahead and have that workshop on the 11th at 3 o'clock.
Great. Awesome.
It'll be at Emory High School.
Wonderful.
Or 3:30, I guess.
Okay. Great. Awesome. Thank you. All right. I sent around the Muslims in America professional learning. I would love for anybody to take this group up on a teacher training proposal regarding Muslims in America. And so this is the organization. I have to say I don't really know them well. I've spoken to her on the phone, and I'm trying to see where the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding is the organization. Is there anybody here who's like, I'll look into that? Put me in touch with her, and because they have a grant and they have money and they will come and do a training for teachers. You just need to work with them.
Yeah, I reached out to a teacher who asked if I partner with them on that. I haven't had time to talk to her.
Okay, great. So
this is the URSA?
No, yeah, this is the rural schools. This is you've got one right there. The Muslims in America.
You teach this stuff at the movies.
Okay, yeah, well, I mean, what she's trying to find is she needs to find a school that's willing to collaborate with her and provide a training in a school or in a district. So you're certainly welcome to look at.
So is that information on this page, or where is it?
If you're interested, you just let me know.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm interested.
I have a teacher who requested.
Okay, if you remind me in an email, that'd be awesome.
Send you an email.
Please.
Okay.
So just shoot me an email.
What's the dimensions of that big map?
I think it's like 21 by 17, something like that.
Yeah. I want to say it was as long as this in a little bit, maybe to the outside of the tables, maybe not quite that long, so it could fit in like a big room. They were in the media center. Yeah, they were in the media center and they just moved stuff tables. Yeah, it might not be that big. And I wouldn't think about those right now, but especially if they get it to have big short kind of stuff, like high school environmental science classes and stuff, that also might be it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, I just wanted you to be aware that we've created a new website for specifically looking at the Holocaust and genocide information, okay? And I'm meeting with some folks, here we go. So this is the website currently. You have the URL here. It has lesson plans and websites and some film resources to start with. But anything that you are aware of that should be added to it, I would appreciate. Okay? What I'd really like to get is a general calendar of typical events that can occur throughout the year as well. Like Holocaust Remembrance Day is always in January. There's always something in April that the University of Utah does. There's different dates that people can kind of calendar out. There are also speaker resources that we're going to add to this. So classrooms who want to make a request for either survivors or families of survivors to come out and speak, there will be those resources. Okay. The specifically the Jewish community, but in a larger sense, there are many communities, including Rwandan refugees who live here in Utah, who are personally aware of genocide and the impact on their families. And they're concerned that young people they just don't know enough. And the reality is that we have lots of places in our standards where the Holocaust and genocide are specifically mentioned. But that doesn't guarantee that there's a lot of attention paid across the grades. So, we're trying to see what we can do. Okay. What I've tried to stave off is a legislative mandate that we teach about the Holocaust, because there's bills out there that have been proposed to say, thou shalt teach. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything has any teeth, from my experience. So, we've created this site. I'd love any feedback or ideas about, or samples, good examples of what you guys are doing, other teachers who are excellent resources, things like that. Okay, so happy to have you kind of make a note of that and let me know. Peter?
I was just going to say, I got an article just last week, I'll send it to you, about how only 24% of high school students surveyed, and it was associated with the NAEP survey, could identify what Auschwitz was.
Yeah.
I mean, the knowledge, there's a whole bunch of data out there that the knowledge of the Holocaust is not only very low, but declining.
Yeah, and I kind of referenced that in this kind of intro piece here on the page about the different surveys throughout history that have shown that we just don't know as much as we should. Okay. All right, I want to talk to you about the Stegner Symposium. Just so you know, the Stegner Symposium is Thursday and Friday, March 21st and 22nd. March 21st and 22nd. Okay? It's a symposium. It's basically for lawyers. Okay? It's law school, lawyers. They get 10 hours of credit. It costs them $150. But this is all about outdoor recreation. It's all about the use of public lands. It's about conflicts have grown more intense between recreation users and ATVers, and just think about the Phil Lyman controversy up Recapture Canyon that Jeff Noakes has a whole lesson about in terms of the consensus document that he was talking about NCSS. So Sally Jewell, a conversation with the Secretary Sally Jewell and Robert Kiter of the U of U College of Law will discuss their perspectives. And so I called them and I said, hey, I think there might be some teachers interested in this. And they emailed me back and they said, okay, so if some teachers want to come, we'll offer them complimentary registrations, either to the full symposium or all day Thursday or all day Friday or the Thursday afternoon conversation with Secretary Jewell. We just need a list of teachers by March 8th. They need to know their names, their school, and their grades, and I'll forward this to them. But they just think, she says, also there are some high school teachers who feel their students would benefit from attending Secretary Jewell's talk. Please have them reach out directly to me. Depending on the overall registration, we might be able to also offer some complimentary registrations to high school students. So this is more for, because it's at the U, so it's more, for DESI's students or Murray, perhaps. I mean, whatever. I mean, if you guys want to make the trek, you're certainly welcome. But, so I've been reaching out to these people because I'm just aggravated that they do really cool stuff that teachers don't know anything about until after the fact. So now I need your help to actually have people there, right? So if I'll send you the info, but if we can get even a few teachers there, this is a perfect geography or Utah Studies topics, or just anybody in generally who's interested. And if we had some students there, that'd be great. Okay? Yeah.
How do they get 10 college credits for 2 days?
Well, these are CLE. I don't think it's college. It's 10 continuing learning units they need to get. So it's 10 hours of, that's how it works. It's like relationship points for us, but they're lawyer hours. Yes?
I was just going to say, over the last decade or so, I've attended twice the Stegner conference, and I did not find anything of those that wouldn't be very useful and understandable to high school students. These are ones in the past.
Yeah.
And I don't know how this year's, the ones I attended were very interesting.
Okay.
Their inspiration from all the statements.
Right, right. And so, I just feel like it's a great opportunity. Okay. All right. There is an article. Oh, sorry. There's just a link. In EdScoop, there's a link that I sent on the agenda to a model for statewide professional learning K-12 that Georgia has put together. I've got a colleague in Georgia named Joy Hatcher and another one named Joanne Wood. And Joanne and Joy are like social studies, the social studies specialists, but there's two of them. So they're able to do more stuff. There's two of them, you know that because you've got multiple hats you wear. But they've created this K-12 model for professional learning that I would love it if you'd take a look at it, just read the article, and if it's something that sounds possible, even in a little bit for us in Utah, I would love to have you take a look at it, okay? And then this is kind of fun, so I thought I'd share this with you. This is the last little article about the historical accuracy of the musical Hamilton. And it's an article about historians that are irked by and feel like, and so there's a guy who actually wrote a play in response to it because Hamilton really kind of whitewashes Hamilton's slaveholding, and he's like so pro-immigrant, but not really. So anyway, it's kind of a fun article. I thought it, if nothing else, it shows you that historians are not afraid of looking at all sacred cows, including the sacred cow of the smash hit Hamilton, the musical. So there's that, okay? So I said we'd meet till 12:30, it's 12:29, so we're gonna let you out early. How about that? Anything else anything else on your agenda? Okay. I'm glad you're here. I really appreciate your time and attention. I know we didn't even take a break, we just barreled, so thank you. You guys rock. Have a great day, and we'll be in touch.
Here's our summary.
Awesome, thank you.
Also, I'll just plan on the 11th, and I'll stay in touch with you.
Okay, great, awesome. That's so great, appreciate it very much.
There's some notes in here.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Wendy asked me to talk with you about this, so I have two questions about our computer. I can get, so, the first two is I can get more data than plan. So, could I offer